Alrighty. Hey guys, this is our final run tonight at Super Mario Galaxy 2, run by Super Viper 302. He does have a really impressive time. It's maybe second or even run that. I'm looking forward to this run, so this is the finale. Give your shout outs to him, and remember that all the bits and subs, I will be basically donating all that to charity. So, good luck and best run to you.
Alright, so this is a very long run, so let's just go ahead and get this ball rolling. Wrong game, but, you know. Anyways, let's get started in 3, 2, 1, video games. So, welcome everybody to Super Mario Galaxy 2 Any %, the not necessarily preferred Galaxy speedrun, but the one I would say is superior amongst the two Galaxy games. So, as is the nature with these games, we're going to start off with 2.5 minutes of introduction, and so there's not really a whole lot to talk about here. So, the way this game operates is very similar to its predecessor, and as well as SM64, where in order to beat the game, you have to collect a certain number of stars in order to progress through each of the worlds. And then you need 70 stars to unlock the final level, which is Bowser's Galaxy Generator, and then from there you collect the Grand Star in order to actually finish the game. So this is essentially a 71-star run. So this is the Master Luma, and this Luma gives us the ability to spin, which for those unfamiliar with the Galaxy games, that's kind of the core mechanic of these games. You shake the Wii Remote or Nunchuck, and you get this little shake to your jump. And right there, what I just did is the first trick of the run. It's called a slope boost. So if you land on a slope with a high amount of speed and then jump off of it within the first few frames of landing, then you will actually gain a small little burst of speed when you jump off the slope. In Galaxy 1, you're actually able to climb up slopes. In this game, you really can't. But you can get those boosts off of them, and you'll see me go for those a few times in the run. So, I brought up the spinning earlier, and that basically lets you do everything in this game. It's like I said, it's the core mechanic. You gain more height out of your jumps, which is kind of the immediate effect from it, but you also can hit enemies with it, you can hit levers with it, and you go into basically every mode of transportation in the game. You literally cannot beat the game without spins. And yeah, I'm just kind of talking through this dialogue, because obviously there's not really a whole lot to talk about in terms of lore here. So coming up, there is a potential for a small text skip. I'm not really going to be going for it, but you might see me get it just out of sheer luck. So on this next set of 4 text boxes, if I waste a few frames on the first 2, and then get the third one frame perfect, I'm not going to get it. You can actually skip that 4th text box, and it says like half a second. I just mashed through it, and if I happen to get it, I get it. It's not really a huge deal. So now we're going to be heading into Sky Station 1, the first level of the game, and right off the bat, things are going to get pretty action-packed here. So a common thing you'll see me use the spin mechanic for, is I can wall jump off a wall to gain height, and then spin backwards to climb up onto a higher ledge that I'm not normally able to. I'm going to use that at the start right here to get on top of this little tower, and skip having to go to the bottom half of this planet. And I'm going to stand still after this Luma's done talking to me, because it makes this cutscene end about half a second earlier. And so I can enter the launch star slightly quicker. So right there you just saw the camera kind of twitch there, and that's me going into first person mode and then exiting it as soon as I land from a launch star, and you'll see me do that pretty much every time I land from a launch star, and it skips the landing animation you normally get. It saves about a second each time you do it. And speaking of things that save a second, that is called Luma Bounce. Basically you do a homing ground pound off that Luma, and it allows you to enter the gravity field of the planet its launch star normally takes you to. It saves a grand total of 1 second, and if you fail it, you die, but, you know. Gotta show it off in a marathon. That was kind of close as well. My cycles are a little bit off there. And that big coin I just grabbed is the first common medal of the run. I'll go more into what those are later when it actually becomes relevant. And as you saw earlier, backwards momentum in this game is superior to forwards momentum, so you can do stuff like that. And next up, we have the first boss fight of the run. This is Pee-wee Piranha. You're supposed to spin at Pee-wee's shell 2 or 3 times to break it, but you can just ground pound the shell once and it shatters immediately. Like so. I actually had some star bits saved up so that I could stun him with them for that first hit, but I don't need to do that here. Because Pee-wee takes a lot longer to run away after his shell shatters on the second hit, so it's much easier to get that right away. And this will mark the first star out of 71 for the run. So I hope you're gonna get comfortable here, because one of the common complaints people get about runs of the Galaxy games, and it's kind of more potent for this game, is that there is a lot of downtime, especially in between stars. So I'd estimate that within every star, there's usually anywhere between like 45 seconds to a minute of downtime. So, but I feel like the levels themselves make up for it, and it's more prominent near the beginning of the game, especially because we have to get all the pre-game exposition out of the way. So this is a fat purple idiot, aka Lubba, but we're going to call him Purple Idiot for reasons that will be important at the end of the run. He's kind of the Rosalina of this game, and his personality is a lot more inventive than Rosalina's, but he's still annoying. And he's going to bother us a lot throughout this run. So, yeah, he's basically just going to use the power of that one star to transform that crappy little spaceship into Starship Mario. This is kind of the hub world of the game. So after these text boxes are finished clearing, I'm going to hold down, because that's going to make Mario face the camera. And that'll allow me to backflip to the helm. So that yellow button is basically my goal every single time I'm on the starship, because that allows me to get to the world map, which is how I'll get from galaxy to galaxy and collect stars. And so if Mario's facing the camera, generally I'll backflip to the button. There are some situations where Mario doesn't face the camera, and there are some situations where the Purple Idiot will bring us to a different part of the starship. So we have two different options here, and we're actually going to go back to Sky Station to get the second main star. A bit of important tech here. So it might look like I just randomly select the star automatically. What I'm doing here is I'm pointing my Wii remote off screen and just mashing A. And if there is a clear or grayed out star on the star select menu, you basically automatically select that star by doing that. Some stars I will have to point at the screen for, but for the most part I'll be using that tech for every star I need to select. So right here I have a pretty tight chomp cycle I need to make. Alright, I barely made it. So this upcoming Luma, it's technically possible to skip its text boxes, and it was discovered on accident by fellow Galaxy 2 runner Odme, but it's not RTA viable. It involves a frame perfect and I think pixel perfect as input, so yeah, just a little bit of a theoretical task trick. On this planet I want to have good movement because the elevators inside of this planet are on cycles, and I want to have a really good cycle in order to get through here in the fastest way possible. So when you grab your first 1-up in this game, a text box appears, so by doing that wall jump in a precise enough manner, I skip the 1-up and therefore it's text box. It actually doesn't matter too much because I'm basically guaranteed to grab another 1-up later in the run anyways, but that's always nice to show off. So here we have our first instance of Cosmic Clones, and these guys basically copy your inputs frame perfectly. They're not so bad here, but in later missions they will make backtracking really, really difficult. So this last planet here is relatively straightforward and self-explanatory. So I brought up in Sky Station 1 that I'll be doing that landing cancel tech with the first-person camera basically almost every single time I land from a launch star. There is, however, a second form of landing cancel that can be done in this run, and it's a bit more uncommon to see than the first one. Basically, you have to jump on a specific frame where you land, and this game runs in 60 FPS, so that's a 60th of a second to time that input. So where will I be going for that? Basically, on the fly-in landing for every star, at least for most of them anyways, you can't camera cancel that landing animation, but you can jump cancel it. So I'll be going for jump cancels at the start of various stars. But it's, again, frame perfect in 60 FPS, so you probably won't see me get it too many times. So right there was an instance where Mario was actually facing the button instead of the camera after the purple idiot was done talking. I just turned him around and had him backflip to the button just because that's what I prefer. So here is Yoshi Star Galaxy, which introduces us to Yoshi, and if you know anything about Galaxy 2 glitches, you know that Yoshi is the most broken part of this game. So basically, with Yoshi, there is a glitch you can do called Infinite Fluttering that you'll basically see me do every single time I get on Yoshi. And this level will have the first bit of a demonstration of it. And I'll explain how to Infinite Flutter and what it can accomplish later on, but there is a skip I'm going to be going for with Infinite Fluttering in this level that saves about 20 seconds and fails. And if you fail it, you lose 45, so hopefully I get it first try. It's rather complicated. This is one of the big reset points for a lot of runners. Alright, I got it first try. Nice. So, the way Infinite Fluttering works, so whenever you do a flutter with Yoshi, normally there's a small cooldown timer that has to persist before Yoshi can actually start another flutter in midair. But you can crouch in midair during a flutter, and that cancels both the flutter and the cooldown, and it allows you to immediately start another flutter. So, you can use that to basically do the flutters as many times as you want in order to gain both distance and height, like I'm doing here. Now, I meant to get on that elevator with that. Okay, that's actually not very good. There we go. That was kind of unfortunate. So whenever you're trying to gain distance or speed with Infinite Fluttering, you generally want to hold an angle that's sideways and slightly in the direction of Yoshi's back. So the issue with that is that if you're in the air for longer than 10 seconds, Yoshi's speed will kind of just drop significantly to the point where you can only flutter slowly to the front or side from there on out, which is a really big part of a lot of Infinite Flutter skips because you tend to push that limit pretty much as far as you can go. So that's why you'll sometimes see me dismount off of Yoshi at the end of various flutters, because when you dismount off of Yoshi in this game, you maintain all the momentum you had going into the dismount. And there's a lot more nuances to Infinite Fluttering that I didn't cover just then, but I'll get more into it later in the run. So, in Yoshi Star 1, we use Infinite Fluttering to skip one planet and save about 20 seconds. In this level, I'm going to be skipping basically the entire level and saving about a minute. And this Infinite Flutter, I'd say, isn't nearly as difficult as the one in Yoshi Star 1, aside from the fact that there's a bit of an awkward camera change midway through, and the angles to hold are not exactly intuitive. So here we go. And we just skip from the Yoshi Egg all the way to the boss planet. And that skips like 3 planets worth of content. So this is Giga-like Key 2. So this boss is the first real instance in the game where we're going to have to make use of the pointer, which, if you don't have a cooperative sensor bar like I did at SGDQ, then these parts of the game are going to be terrible. But it's basically just about aiming spinies at him and not missing shots. This is a cool little glitch. If you uncrouch and spin on the same frame Yoshi does that sliding state, it's completely useless. Okay, that was kind of bad. So what I was trying to do there was I hit both of those spinies once with Yoshi's tongue, and then shot them both at Giga-like, and then I shoot one of them at Giga-like Key 2, and then I tried to eat the second one before the first one made contact, but unfortunately I got hit by another spiny. So what that would have allowed me to do is I wouldn't have had to wait for Giga-like Key 2 to pull out another spiny there. I would have just been able to hit him with the spiny I had in Yoshi's mouth at the start of the 3rd phase, and that would have been it. But instead I just had to wait for that spiny. Didn't lose too much time though. Yeah, those first 4 stars generally are like the big reset point of the run, so unfortunately Yoshi Star 1 and 2 didn't go too well, but at least no super major mistakes happened. So now we're going to be moving on in World 1. We don't have a whole lot of like routing options early on in the game, but it will branch out a lot more as we get into some of the later worlds. So next up is Spin Dig Galaxy, where we're introduced to the first of the game's actual power-ups, and this is actually one that's, I think, exclusive to Galaxy 2. So this is the Spin Drill. Basically, if you have it equipped and you drill on a dirt section of a planet, you can drill through it and end up on the other side of a planet. And you're supposed to use this often throughout this star, but a thing Nintendo tends to do with 3D Mario games is that they forget Mario can jump when designing these levels. So instead of using the spin drill to get up to this section here, I'm just going to do a triple jump. And that works just as well. So on this next planet, you're going to be seeing me use another utilization of the home and ground pound, which is what you saw me do for that Luma bounce trick earlier. It's this move. Basically, it's just a spin followed by a ground pound that homes in onto the nearest item, enemy, or NPC. And when I do it off the spin drill like that, it gives me a little bit of extra momentum. So I'm supposed to go a little bit farther to the left here, but if I jump backwards into the corner of this pillar, I clip inside of it and pop up on the other side, and that just saves a few seconds of walking. So this next planet, I have to wait for the Luma at the end. So I'll go ahead and talk about coins and star bits, particularly star bits. You'll notice that I'm kind of avoiding picking up... Okay, I'm surprised I didn't die there. I'm kind of avoiding picking up star bits in levels, and I'm spitting them out whenever I do. That's because if you have star bits or coins in your inventory when you finish a level, then you get these text boxes that count them down, and they waste like 1 second each time, so I want to avoid those whenever possible. But here I need star bits so I can perform this skip here. You're normally supposed to have Captain Toad talk to you there when you land there, but by going into first person mode and shooting him in the face, you skip that text, and it's pretty hilarious. So here is Dig a Leg. This boss is the first real instance of RNG in the run, and it's not too significant, but it can matter by quite a few seconds if you get good versus bad RNG. So here, I'm going to be brushing up against Dig a Leg. I actually want him to jump on top of me, like that. And that'll make it jump up and immediately land on this side of the battlefield, and then immediately become vulnerable. Which saves quite a bit of time on both phases. And I also want to keep those yellow Diggas alive if possible, because then Dig a Leg won't try to spawn any more of them. Perfect RNG, nice. So I'm going to keep this yellow Digga alive, and he's not going to and he's only going to spawn 1 here. Alright, so that was a really good Dig a Leg fight. That's really, really close to an optimal fight. And instead of walking all the way over to the star, because I'm a lazy bum who doesn't like to use his legs, I'm just going to drill straight to the star and hitboxes cause Mario to just kind of pop up right into it. That was a decent level overall, aside from that one mistake on the Luma planet where I got hit by that enemy. So this is the first of a few stars where the Purple Idiot will actually bring me down to the bottom of the starship, and this is usually for when certain NPCs get introduced. Which is cool and all, but the NPCs aren't going to help us beat the game in any way, so after he's done flapping his gums to us, we're just gonna immediately make our way back to the button. So up next, we're going to go to Right Side Down Galaxy. This is the first kind of intermediate galaxy, I'd say. Most like main galaxies have 3 stars. This one only has 2. So this galaxy kind of toys with the idea of gravity and how it influences your gameplay. So as you can see, there are arrows pointing different directions, and those do actually dictate where the gravity is facing. And there's a bunch of really cool sequence breaks in this level that it seems like Nintendo kind of planned for you to be able to do, because it's just convenient level design. So to start off, we've got this cool little backflip here to get all the way down to this flower. So I'm supposed to hit this switch here to switch the direction of gravity, but there's a conveniently placed item block right here that allows me to get all the way down to the next section of the level. There's another slope boost. Got that. And here I'm supposed to hit another gravity switch to reverse the direction of gravity, but these elevators are, again, conveniently placed right next to where I need to go. So that saves a good chunk of time. And now we're coming up on this fire flower section. So what I'm going to be doing here with the fire flowers, I'm going to be trying to skip breaking some of these boxes using some precise maneuvers. So let's see if I can get this. This first one's kind of the harder of the two. Okay. I messed up the setup for it, so I'm not going to go for it. Okay, please break the box. This second one's a little bit easier. There we go. The reason why that's so risky to go for if you mess up the setup is because if you get crushed in this game, which tends to happen if you fail that, it doesn't matter how much health you have, you're just automatically dead. So, you want to avoid that whenever possible. And right here, I'm just skipping the rest of this level by jumping on the side of the level. It might not seem like you're supposed to do that, but there are actually one-ups in the four corners on that area, so Nintendo planned for you to be able to go up there. So now I'm actually going to be re-entering Right Side Down Galaxy. It might not look like there's any stars left for me to do, but there is a secret or hidden star that is accessible. Okay, yeah, you can see that star with a question mark over it. That's the hidden star. And since there's no grayed out star for it, I do have to manually point at the screen and select that star. But since I've already seen these level intro cutscenes, I can just mash A to skip through them like that. So instead of hitting the gravity switch here to switch the gravity again, I'm just gonna jump up into the pipe like that. And this is a pipe that takes us to the box breaking minigame. This is reminiscent of the trash minigames from Galaxy 1. These are about as hard for a casual player to do, but when doing them fast, it's really hard to do them optimally. Because there's especially this one, because there's a lot of really finicky fireball throwing positions you have to throw them at and really tight angles. So let's see what I can do here. Okay, that's not good. Okay, 10 isn't that bad. Optimally, you can get like a 13 or even a 14, but 10 isn't horrible. Like, 11 or 12 is usually average for me, so I can accept that. So that'll be it for Right Side Down. Something else. After this star, so now we have 7 stars. So one of the most important characters in the game is gonna spawn on the starship after this star, and he'll come into play midway through World 2. So this Toad that the purple idiot's about to reference, keep this Toad in mind, because he will be important later on. But with that, it's time to move on to Fluffy Bluff Galaxy, where we're introduced to a fan-favorite power-up in this game, the Cloud Mushroom. And just like a lot of the power-ups in this game, it has its own set of broken physics. So I'm actually going to be doing the secret star first. This requires collecting 100 coins to feed a hungry Luma. Unlike Galaxy 1, where Lumas within galaxies require star bits, in this game they require coins. And this one actually requires the most coins out of any hungry Luma in the game. And it's the first one that you can do in this game, but there's 2 really convenient locations to get coins that I'm going to utilize. So I'm going to long jump into this cloud flower here, and because Mario turns around to face the camera like that, you can get a little bit of backwards momentum, which is a little bit faster. So I'm going to get 60 of the coins I need in this room. I have to be pretty quick with getting these coins, because if the timer expires, then I won't be able to try again, and I would have to ditch this star, which is part of the reason why I do it first. But now I have 60 coins, so we can just head on out of here. And I can get the remaining 40 coins on the cloud where the hungry Luma is. Alright. So now we're going to feed them to this hungry Luma. So each of those 3 little clouds that's been following Mario, those represent individual cloud platforms that can be created by spinning, which can allow you to cross otherwise uncrossable gaps, some intended, some unintended. And I'm going to be utilizing a bunch of various cloud tech to make it up this tower here, and I'll just kind of let the movement here speak for itself and then explain some stuff after the star's finished. Alright, that was a really good climb. So the main cloud tech is cloud cancels. So when you make a cloud, I'm going to be crouching whenever I make a cloud because that will cancel the cloud making animation and allow Mario to move right away. But another thing that allows me to do is actually utilize the cloud's kind of upwards bounce. So basically, if Mario jumps while the platform underneath him is moving, the platform's momentum will be applied to his jump. So if it's moving upward, his jump will go a lot higher, and we can use the clouds to get some pretty interesting results from that. Another piece of cloud tech that's going to be important for this star, Fluffy Bluff 1, is when you long jump from the center of a cloud as Cloud Mario and you're over an abyss, you can gain a lot of horizontal speed. So I'm going to be using that for a really big skip in this level. So I'm going to use Cloud Mario here to get on top of the tree. And you're actually not supposed to go up here for the star at all, but there's no depth plane here, so we can just kind of jump off the side of the level. And using a couple of well-placed clouds, we can get all the way to the final planet of the galaxy. Like so. And here's some cloud-boosted long jumps. So that's kind of taking advantage of the cloud's bounce to the extreme. You make a cloud wall grounded, and then you long jump, and it gives you both a boost in height and distance to your long jump. Do it again right there. You'll see some more upwards platform shenanigans later in the run. And that's it for that level. And in case you're scared because I didn't get the Kama Medal here, this is one of the only galaxies in the run where I actually don't get the Kama Medal because that skip just saves so much time. So, certain stars bring you down to this little engine room here where the purple idiot gets to show off various power-ups, which you don't even get to use, you just get to stare at. And they are tied to specific stars. And this room is completely useless, so we're just going to yeet on out of here. And this movement can be pretty awkward. That triple jump can be really difficult to time and angle correctly. So now I'm going to be heading on to the boss level of World 1. So each of the 6 worlds in this run has a castle boss level, and they alternate between Bowser Jr. and Bowser stages. They are usually really, really difficult, both casually and for speedrunning. So the movement in this level is pretty tight because there's a thwomp cycle I need to make that costs about 4 seconds for each cycle you missed, and the movement is pretty difficult to do without dying. And then the boss fight here is one of the hardest boss fights for speedrunners to get consistent at. So I'm going to try and focus here so I can get this movement right. That should be good. Nice. So I can get on top of this castle here using that thwomp, and the gravity field of this boss planet just so happens to be pretty huge, so we can do this. And right there I just did what's called a frame-perfect ground pound. You normally can't do a normal ground pound out of a long jump, but by spinning and pressing Z on the same frame, you cancel the spin and enter a ground pound state immediately. So now we're going to fight Gobblegut. Instead of waiting for him to bury his face in the ground and then getting the bellyache bulges as they pass by, I'm going to try to attack all the bellyache bulges while he's in the air, and to get this fight optimally, I have to do a very specific setup for each of the hits, and I basically want nothing to go wrong. So right here, I'm going to try to hit bulges 5, 6, and 1 in order. This is difficult right from the get-go. And now for the second phase, I'm going to run down and in a straight line, so that Gobblegut follows me and gets closer to the planet, and at a specific point I'm going to turn around here and try to get these last 3 bulges back to back to back. And perfect Gobblegut fight. That is way, way harder than I just made it look. That takes a ton of practice to get down. And the best part is, in any percent, we actually have to do that exact fight twice. So that was the first time, and you'll get to see that fight again in about an hour and a half from now. But the collection of this Grand Star will mark the end of the World 1 segment. So grand stars are what allow you to get from world to world. And I hope you enjoy this cutscene here, because you have to watch it after each of the first 5 worlds in this run, and it's pretty much the same thing every time, and the purple idiot bothers us with dialogue even more. So in the lower right-hand corner, you've probably noticed this right now, and I haven't pointed it out yet. You've probably noticed this little time in the lower right-hand corner. That's actually the IL time that the game gives you when you complete a star. So that's what we use for ILs in this game, and it's also a good tool to use for like practicing consistency. So usually using that, I can tell approximately how much time I lose on a star. So World 2 is the shortest world segment in the run. We're not in here for very long and we don't collect too many stars, but we get a lot of interesting stars here. Starting with this level, Puzzle Plank. Puzzle Plank has one of the most famous tracks in the game, and aside from that, this level doesn't have a whole lot going for it in terms of like major things. There's a couple of small things I'll point out as I get to them, but for the most part, this level is just kind of heavily movement-based, with a few odd quirks about it.
Yes.
So on this next planet here, I'm going to skip going to the bottom half of the planet by backflipping straight to the launch star. An important thing about spin heights in this game is that when you spin, such as for right here, you actually want to be holding A, because that makes Mario gain more height from his spin. And with Mario, you want to be spinning using the Wii Remote to gain more height. With the nunchuck, you gain slightly less height. Yeah, for those who don't know, you can use both the Wii Remote and the nunchuck to spin. This section's really scary. If you get hit by one of those buzzsaws, it's easy to get knocked off the stage. But thankfully that didn't happen. And now we're getting onto one of the weirdest planets in the entire game. So, this planet's gravity is really weird, and sometimes it's possible to hit these puzzle pieces more than one time with a single ground pound. No one knows why it happens, and it's kind of random, and it can save time if you get it to happen, but I didn't get it there. Yeah, basically in one ground pound, the puzzle piece would move down twice, and it's really strange. And now I have to fight this little boss from Galaxy 1. And we make a joke out of it. And that's it for that level. Again, not too much going for that level, but it's a pretty cool stage in terms of movement you do. So, before we move on to the next star, the purple idiot is once again going to bother us with an unskippable world map sequence. Where he's going to introduce us to actually a pretty important aspect of this game, the Grand World Map. So you have individual world maps which let you go from galaxy to galaxy. The Grand World Map is for just worlds, so you can go from world to world. And the reason why this is important is, let's say I'm in World 5 and I want to go back to World 3. I can just zoom out to this Grand World Map and go straight from World 5 to World 3 without having to backtrack through each of the individual galaxies. And I won't be world jumping until midway through World 3, but that will be important throughout the run. So here we have Hightail Falls. This is one of, personally, my favorite Yoshi galaxies in the speedrun, because it has a lot of really impressive tech and movement. And we get introduced to the Dash Pepper, which makes Yoshi run really, really fast, and for some reason, in that state, he can run up walls. Don't ask me why, Nintendo logic. I'm also going to be collecting star bits here, because I can't spit out star bits while I'm on Yoshi, so what the heck. There's a lot of them in this level, and they're pretty hard to avoid. So with the Dash Pepper, its effects will actually persist between launch stars. So for this level, I'm going to want to try to maximize the amount of time I have the launch star's effects in motion. So one thing I'm going to do that is I'm going to take the left path here, which involves this tight maneuver. And I'm going to grab this Dash Pepper, which will allow me to keep it in effect by the time I reach the next section. And I'm also going to be grabbing this next Dash Pepper a little bit late. So coming up is a bit of an interesting Infinite Flutter skip that is kind of counterintuitive. I basically jump off that platform with Dash Pepper momentum at a specific time and at a specific angle, and by holding specific angles during the flutter, I can kind of maintain the Dash Pepper momentum while fluttering in a forwards-like direction, which allows me to make it all the way to that platform. And don't blink. So I mentioned earlier in the run that when you dismount off of Yoshi in this game, you maintain all your momentum. So that's basically that concept applied to dismounting off of Dash Yoshi while you're going up a really steep slope. As you can tell, you get a lot of height and distance from that. And that just allows me to propel myself straight into the star. So, up next is Cosmic Cove Galaxy, which is sort of a Resident Sleeper level, but there's actually quite a bit more to this level than you might think. Especially in terms of routing. This is probably one of the most convoluted galaxies in terms of how we route going about the 2 stars we do here. So, during Cosmic Cove 1, I am actually going to be collecting 15 coins to feed a Hungry Luma, but this is while I'm doing Cosmic Cove 1 instead of just doing the Secret Star. So at the start here, I'm going to get these 8 star bits and this Koopa shell for various reasons. So when I kill these worm enemies with star bits, instead of just shining the shell's light at them, I get coins instead of star bits. And so I want to do that twice with this route. So the reason why I'm using the shell in this game, if you're familiar with Galaxy 1 speedruns, you probably know that you can just spam spins underwater in this game. You can't do that in this game because they added a cooldown timer between spins. So taking the shell is actually a better alternative, which is just better anyways because you don't have to do as much exercise and you don't kill your arm by constantly shaking. And with the shell, you can also do these cool jumps out of the water as you're about to see. So, due to the way everything in this level is kind of placed, it's actually faster to, again, feed the Hungry Luma while doing Cosmic Cove 1. So I'm hitting the switch to freeze the lake, and now I'm going to head over to the Hungry Luma and talk to it and feed it my 15 coins. But I'm not actually going to take its launch star right away. I'm going to do that the next time I enter Cosmic Cove. And instead, I'm just going to skate over to where the waterfalls are and then get Cosmic Cove 1. And then when I re-enter Cosmic Cove Secret, I can just go straight to the launch star. So I just gotta make my way over here and wall jump up these waterfalls, because physics. Okay. There have been instances, it's never happened to me, knock on wood, but sometimes I've seen it where players can just sometimes be unable to wall jump off those waterfalls for whatever reason. It's really, really rare, and I don't know why it happens. Thankfully, it hasn't happened to me yet. But it's kind of worth bringing up. And now, we're on to one of the most important parts of the run. So when I re-enter Cosmic Cove to get the Secret Star here, I actually don't want to auto-select, because then I'll select Cosmic Cove 2 instead of Cosmic Cove 1. And you don't have access to the areas you need to have access to in Cosmic Cove 2, so I would have to sit through the level intro cutscenes, and then once Mario lands, I would have to exit the level. And that would waste like 30 seconds. So I have to make sure I actually point at the screen and select Cosmic Cove Secret. Select Cosmic Cove 1. So, get your Bless RNGs out. Okay, yeah, I did it. And since I've already fed the Hungry Luma, I can just make my way straight over to the launch star. I don't have to refeed it. And here's I have to wait for the little Luma to go back into Mario's hat. Every time I spin underwater, so again, I'm not able to abuse swims underwater to go fast. You can technically do the surface swim glitch in this game, but it's not really useful for any reason. And I'm grabbing these star bits from these snoodles for a very specific reason that you'll see when I get to this planet. So, the bunnies were a pretty big nuisance in Galaxy 1. This is the only one in this game at all, and it's not terribly difficult. And there's a pretty fast strat I can do for it. Alright, got it. So, by shooting that bunny with star bits, it just kind of randomly runs the wrong direction for some reason, and that makes it so that you can catch it a lot quicker. Normally you're supposed to hit that blue switch and freeze the lake, so that you can skate to catch the bunny, but that's way faster. So, before I move on, remember that toad I brought up in World 1? Well, that's the bank toad, and that's actually where I'm going to be getting all my star bits for feeding Hungry Luma galaxies. So the way this works is, if you deposit star bits in this bank toad in one save file, that will persist across all 3 save files. So I can actually withdraw these star bits in this save file, so I don't have to collect any star bits in any galaxies, and these can be the star bits I use for Hungry Luma galaxies. So I need approximately that many. So that is kind of a new game plus thing, but it's basically the standard for running this game, and running this game without bank toad would be a severe pain. And the process for unlocking Hungry Luma galaxies does take a long time, but usually these Hungry Luma galaxies lead to really, really fast stars, so they're worth going out of the way to get. And the same thing actually applies to, sometimes you have to go out of your way to collect comet medals in galaxies, but a lot of comet stars that those can unlock are really, really fast, so it's worth getting them to save time. So here in Honey Bloom, I'm actually going to be collecting both stars here. We actually didn't used to collect both stars here, so we used to only collect the secret star here, but I'll get more into that later. So, the secret star is, I think, the fastest non-green star in the game. Optimally, this level is under 20 seconds long in game time, and I'm just going to kind of let the movement here speak for itself. So enjoy this really fast-paced gameplay. Yeah, that was hard. So yeah, very impressive star to watch. So here's a bit of an overlapping of events. Because I just got Honey Bloom's secret, an NPC is going to appear at the bottom of the starship. But because I also just got 15 stars, I'm going to get a letter from the Mail Toad for a star that I'm not even going to get in another galaxy. And so I'm going to be warped straight up from this spot of the starship to the Mail Toad, which just saves a few seconds of travel time. So now I'm actually going to go back into Honey Bloom and do Honey Bloom 1. This star didn't used to be in the Any % route, but about a year ago, a few people got together in the Galaxy community and found a way to optimize this star enough to where it would be viable for Any %. It is technically slower than the star it replaces, but most of that time save is omitted by being able to skip these level intro cutscenes. This entire level is in 2D, so there's not really anything you can do in terms of major skips, but it's also about the bee mushroom, which, as we know, is really slow. So in this first section, I'm going to try to skip using the bee mushroom altogether by utilizing a technique where you can jump off of clouds for a few frames if you don't have the bee mushroom, like that. This section of the level is really hard. Alright, that was perfect. That's a very difficult jump to make. If you mess it up, you're going to fall all the way down and lose a lot of time. Here I have no choice but to use B Mario because I have to use him to get through this section of the level, and he is very slow. Yeah, basically, if you're not supposed to stand on clouds or flowers if you don't have B Mario or Cloud Mario active, but there's a few frames where you can jump off of them. So here I'm going to take damage off that Choppa so I can lose the Bisu, so I can get through this section a little bit quicker. Oh, that was kind of bad. This section is not particularly trivial. There we go. I meant to long jump over the bee mushroom there, but it's actually not that big a deal. So, not too clean, but still making it through with minimal time loss. So basically, the whole point behind this star, so we used to do a supermassive one instead of this star, but doing this star prevents a couple of different world map animations from happening, which saves like 10 seconds on its own. And also, I can do Boulder Bowl 1 later in the run, which means I can finish World 4 with 1 fewer comet medals than before, which will allow me to do which will allow me to actually skip a comet spawn cutscene by having it overlap with a grand star. It's very complicated how it all works out, but basically doing the star optimally can save around 15 to 20 seconds over doing Supermassive 1 in any percent. And you can do relatively safe strats and still save time, or at least break even with that star. It is a very, very complicated star to do, though. Especially with the strats I do. So up next, we're going to be heading to the first Bowser level of the run to get our second Grand Star. This is a particularly interesting stage because there's not really any major skips in it. It's mostly just a bunch of small skips that add up over time. And you're going to notice that all the Bowser stages have a common theme of lava boosting. So this is probably one of the more impressive stages to nail everything, but there's a lot of really difficult tech in here. So at the start here, I'm supposed to kill this Magic Koopa to make a pole star appear so I can get to the next section, but you can just long jump straight into the gravity field as I'm about to demonstrate. Like so. And instead of using the spring here, I'm just going to side flip. So here I'm going to be grabbing the Life Mushroom, which gives me 3 additional units of health, and I actually do want those 3 units of health, and I also don't want to go below 4 health at this point, because there is a skip at the end of this level that requires me to have at least 4 health. So I want to kind of play it safe here. Although I could potentially lose it here, because I'm going to do a bit of a lava boost trick here to skip killing this hammer bro. Okay, that wall jump can be a little bit fickle. So here I'm going to turn the camera so that I can get the womps off camera so that they don't move, so that they're on the right cycles for me. I'm going to store a triple jump by double jumping into the lava, and then as soon as I land I can do a triple jump. And get that comet medal a lot quicker. So what I was trying to do there was jump as the womp was rising so I could get momentum, and then jump backwards all the way to the meteor, but I think I jumped a little early, so I didn't get it. It's not a huge deal though. It's not coming up as the big skip here. I get to skip a couple of snake block auto-scrollers by just lava boosting here. And if I space this out properly, I can long jump my way across the Bowser statues. It's actually kind of interesting tech where when you bounce on the lava in this game and then land on the ground, Mario does this short little bounce, and then once he lands from that bounce, you can regain control of him as normal. But if you do that short little bounce and then immediately land in the lava again, the game will remember that that short bounce already happened, and so the next time you land on the ground, you immediately begin moving. And so you basically just utilize that to space yourself out properly so you can long jump across those statues. And that skip requires at least 4 HP. There is an alternative that only requires 3, but it's much slower and a lot more difficult. So here we have our first Bowser fight of the run. These Bowser fights are pretty straightforward. There's not too much you can do to make them go any faster. And they're somewhat boring, but basically Bowser just summons some meteors and then he slams his fist into the ground, and then while he's trying to pull it out, you ground pound the meteors into him, and you have to do this a total of 4 times. This fight's pretty straightforward, but it does get a lot more difficult later on. The only thing you can really do to optimize this fight is have Bowser punch as close to the meteor as possible, and then ground pound the meteor at an angle that causes it to travel the shortest distance to Bowser's body. And missing hits, it wastes about 20 seconds, so you don't want to do that in any of these fights. It's not as common to happen on this fight because it's so simple, but on a couple of the later fights it's a lot more potent. So this fire attack, I want to pay attention to where it ends, because that's where he's going to start aiming his next punch. And so basically, by knowing where that will be, I can manipulate him into punching right away. Though it can make having Bowser punch at a correct spot a bit more tricky, because you're not really in direct control of it. that wasn't too bad of a level. And now we just kind of have to sit through these cutscenes here. Again, there's unfortunately a lot of downtime in this run, which kind of contributes to its length. So that fight, again, is pretty basic for the most part, but the later fights will have a lot more to keep in mind and a lot more complicated techniques in order to not lose time. But that's it for the World 2 segment of the run, because this is the Grand Start for World 2. So from here on out is where I'd say the run sort of makes a bit of a leap in difficulty. There's been some difficult tricks and stuff and levels up until this point, but World 3 is where the game overall makes a pretty big spike in difficulty. A lot of the stages get a lot more complicated and longer, and the mistakes start becoming a bit more costly from here on out. This is also where I'm going to start world jumping for the first time. Gotta sit through that text from the purple idiot once more. We'll get to shove it in his face at the end of the run, though, so no need to be too upset. So at the start of World 3 here, there's this branching pathway you can take. I'm actually going to be taking the bottom path first, which means we're going to be going to Cloudy Court to start off World 3. This is a pretty fun level for me. There's a lot of cloud boosting action you get to do here. It's a pretty technical level as well in terms of movement. And there's a couple of small skips and tricks you get to do here. So the big thing, there's kind of two big things about this level. The first is 4 cloud strats. So there's going to be 2 instances in this level where I will cloud boost into a cloud flower, which will replenish my cloud stock, and then I will use the other 3 clouds to cross a gap. And so you're essentially using 4 clouds for one single maneuver. And the first time I do that, it's actually going to be right here. And using cloud boosting just allows me to get a lot more distance out of those long jumps. Here I had to face the jump so that Mario ledge grabs onto it, and then I can use all 3 of these clouds to skip that launch start. Okay, that cloud boost can be a little bit awkward sometimes. So now I have this 2D section. At the end of this section are going to be some crushers that have a Kama Medal in the middle of them, and if I go fast enough, I can actually make it through the crushers and get the Kama Medal before they close. And this requires a pretty specific setup in order to do, because again, if you mess this up and get crushed, you're just dead. And if you miss the cycle, that's about 10 seconds. This should be good. Nice. So my setup for that isn't too difficult, but it still can be pretty tight. And overall, that level went really well. That's one of those levels that looks more complicated. That it's more complicated than it looks to get everything down in. So next up is Freezy Flake's Secret, and this is the first star where I actually get to have a little bit of fun with the chat here. So if you remember the chimp we saw in Fluffy Bluff 1, this will be the first of his mini-games that we'll be doing in the run, where we need to beat a high score that he set. The minigame duration timer is fixed, so there's no way to stop the timer early by beating the high score, and it doesn't lose time to get as high of a score as possible. So if you want to guess what score I'm going to get, the kind of conditions are, you have to guess anywhere between 500 and 900 points. 500 is the minimum score required to win, and 900 is basically as far as I can go. And you can only guess in multiples of 10, so like 570, 650, or 730, stuff like that. And my rules are whoever either gets it exactly right or is closest either ahead or behind is the winner. So go ahead and get your guesses out. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of a fun thing here. I'm actually going to be skating backwards, and you're probably wondering how I do this. If you just press Z while you're skating, Mario starts skating backwards. It doesn't actually affect his controls at all. I don't know why you can do it, but it just looks cool. So I like showing it off. So the patterns are technically consistent for this minigame, but they can be rotated one of, I think, 3 different ways, and that's RNG dependent. So... that fortunately, though, there's kind of a rhythm to each of the 3 rotations in terms of the lines and movement you take, and it's not terribly difficult to memorize all 3 of them. It just becomes muscle memory after a short period of time. Alright, 770. So whoever guessed closest to that, or... Oh. So... Whoever gets closest to that or guessed exactly right would have won. And if you missed your opportunity there, there's another opportunity later on. By the way, that's something I have not seen before. Classic marathon luck. So, I usually like to do a for fun homing ground pound off the chimp once the minigame is done. But for some reason, the chimp didn't finish his animation until his dialogue started, which is really odd. And that did actually lose me some time. Which is kind of unfortunate, but hey, at least I got to show off. And again, there's another minigame exactly like that later on, where you have another opportunity to guess if you missed your opportunity there. So now I'm going to be doing Freezy Flake 1. This is a pretty short level, but it's very tight in terms of the movement you have to do. And there's potential for really big time losses here. Oh, I didn't get the early fireball 2 for 2. So I'm going to try to make it to the Kama Medal in the next section of this level using this Fire Flower. And I have to make this Fire Flower last. There's only like a couple seconds of leeway here. So this should be good enough, but I might just barely make it. Alright, I got it. Missing that loses about 20 to 25 seconds, I believe, because you would have to get another Fire Flower, then blow up the wall, get the Kama Medal, and then wait for the next one to spawn, because you just couldn't make it to the Bowser statue and blow it up on that one Fire Flower. And I can skip going all the way around there by just lava boosting there. And when I'm throwing the fireballs at the Bowser statue like that, I'm not shaking the Wii Remote constantly, I'm timing my shakes. It makes it a little bit easier to fire them optimally. I have not died in this run yet. So, we're going to get a visit from someone kind of special here, but only really for this few seconds. Because I just got 3 stars from World 3. So say hello to Luigi. And now say goodbye to him. So from this point onward, Luigi will start appearing at the start of various levels. And you can talk to him to switch to playing as him for that one level. He does run faster and jump higher than Mario, so he is advantageous to use, but the amount of time it takes to talk to him both before and after the 1 star is just, it wastes too much time for the amount of time he would save. So this entire run will be played as Mario. You can only switch to Luigi freely in post-game, which I don't get to do in this run. So at the start of Honey Halls 1, I'm going to rotate the camera a few times, so as I kind of alluded to in Lava Layer, objects and enemies that are not moving don't move if they're not on camera, so by getting these platforms off camera for a little bit at the start of the level, I can manipulate their cycles and make a slightly faster platform cycle at the start of this level here. I need to have pretty good movement in order to make it, though. So this is the cycle in question. This does come at the cost of a checkpoint, though, so I have to be really careful here. In this game, you have to touch physical checkpoint flags instead of Galaxy 1, where it just automatically updates. And those first 2 platforms are cycle-based. This and the next platform actually start moving when you enter a certain radius. So they're not cycle-based. And again, because you can long jump in this game, you can skip on waiting most of them. And this Kama Medal is cycle-based, but it's kind of weird because I believe it stops moving once you enter the launch star, so only your movement to the launch star matters. And here we get Yoshi, so I'm sure you can guess what we're going to do to get to the star a bit quicker. And we're going to use this gold berry here, which eliminates floors underneath you that otherwise aren't solid and don't exist. Except I don't really need it. Alright, that was really good. You'll get to see more of the gold berry later. So something very important just happened, and that's that I got my 4th star from World 3. So this is the point in the run where comets are going to start appearing, and I'll get more into what those are once I start actually doing them. But this is what I've been collecting those comet medals for, is so I can unlock these stars. And I'll be continuing to collect comet medals throughout the entire run to get as many of these to spawn as I can. But it'll be a while before I actually start doing comets, because there's still a few more stars I need to get. So now it's time for Haunted Halls 2, aka Long Jump Simulator 2010. So if you haven't caught on, long jumps are kind of the fastest way to move without any special upgrades. And this level is basically just doing that the entire way through. Optimizing long jumps is actually quite a bit more complicated than you might think, because in order to not lose momentum when starting a long jump, you actually want to press Z and A at about the same time, because that makes Mario not enter the crouch animation. And so let's say you start a long jump and you press Z and A at the same time, and then after the long jump ends you start running again. Mario wouldn't lose any speed upon landing. So that was a pretty good long jump, because as you can see, Mario didn't lose speed upon landing. But if he does enter the crouching animation when he starts a long jump from running, then he will lose speed. So you have to keep that in mind constantly. And also when you're chaining long jumps like I am here, there's a small frame window where you have to press A and long jump again without losing speed. And it doesn't matter too much for the most part, but again, a few frames saved, especially over a run as long as this, can definitely make a difference. And this level is just kind of generally scary, because it's really easy to fall off or get knocked off the stage and die, especially if you mess up your movement somewhere. But with enough practice, it can be pretty consistent. So at this point, I'm just kind of letting comets build up in Worlds 1 and 2, and I'm going to be making a couple different backtracking sessions to them throughout the run. And I'll be making like a couple separate trips for each of them. So next up, we're going to move on to our next Hungry Luma Galaxy, which is going to be Beep Block. So this Hungry Luma is actually kind of weird. Of the 5 Hungry Lumas we beat in this run, this is the only one where the last star bit will always shoot out later than normal. Which is actually kind of convenient, because it makes setting up this backflip to the button a little bit easier. So pay close attention here to this last star bit. Notice how that was kind of delayed. I believe there's another Hungry Luma in the game that does that, but we don't see it unlocked in this run. So Beep Block is a Hungry Luma Galaxy with a pretty interesting gimmick to it. Basically, there's these yellow and green tiles, or these yellow and green blocks, and they switch every 8 beats of the song, which makes this level cycle-based. And it's another level that's mostly just a bunch of long jumps, but I actually do kind of have to stay on track with the cycles here, because getting thrown off can basically just lead to a bunch of improvisation. And so I kind of have to stay on my cycles for this entire level. I am going to intentionally play it kind of slow at the start of this level, because I want to avoid getting caught on some green blocks up ahead. But from here on out, I just kind of have to play fast. Alright, so far so good. And now I just have some silver stars to collect. Alright, perfect. That's a much scarier level than it might seem. And that last long jump is particularly tricky to get down because the angle isn't in the notches of the control stick. So if you mess it up, it's easy to die. But for all intents and purposes, that was a perfect Beep Block one. So up next is quite a convoluted level in terms of how much you have to do in it, Tall Trunk 1. This is one of the more satisfying levels to get everything down in, but it's also one of the trickier levels, especially once you start implementing all the really difficult strats. So to start off this level, we have some pretty difficult platforming to do here. So this tree here, you're supposed to climb it using Yoshi and the Blimp Fruit, but the Blimp Fruit is really slow to use, and so is Infinite Fluttering upwards with Yoshi. And Mario happens to be a very skilled acrobat, so he can just use his various jumps to scale this tree instead. But this is quite a bit harder, and only saves a few seconds. That long jump in particular is really finicky. Alright, but that went well. And that just saves a few seconds over not using Yoshi. But now we will start using Yoshi, and for great extent here. This upcoming Infinite Flutter is really awkward because it's straight backwards, so if I mess this up, then I'd have to bail and do a slower strat. Alright, but I got it, which is really good. Messing up getting that Common Medal means I have to grab the Blimp Fruit, because I lose my ability to flutter backwards if I start fluttering forwards. And then here I just collect all 5 of these star chips in one full fall. And I ditch Yoshi here to collect... First of all, it makes getting to the launch star a lot quicker. And second of all, Yoshi will be in his egg by the time I make it down this long fall. And that means I can do this ground pound right away, so I fall down here a lot faster. And Yoshi's just in his egg ready to go. Unfortunately, Infinite Fluttering upwards, like I said, is really, really slow. So I do have no choice but to take the Blimp Fruit here. So this last section's kind of slow and boring, but there's really nothing you can do. Here I'm going to shake out of the Blimp Fruit using the nunchuck because I want to keep my pointer from the Wii Remote pointed at the next Blimp Fruit. Otherwise I'd have to deal with the cursor spazzing out, and that's not good. You might think Yoshi will get his time to shine, but no. In the famous words of, I believe, Carl Sagan 42, Yoshis are tools to be used and discarded. Thankfully, though, once you drop Yoshi in a pit, he doesn't actually die. He just turns into an egg when he hits the death barrier and then respawns somewhere else. So I'm not actually killing Yoshi or anything. So now we're finally going to be able to do our first Comet Star of the run. And it's going to be Cloudy Quartz Comet, which is actually the comet with the lowest Comet Medal requirement at 1. So in order to unlock a comet in a galaxy, you need the Comet Medal from that galaxy and a certain number of Comet Medals total. And there's some other conditions too, but those are kind of the main ones. And comets are essentially modified versions of galaxies. And again, most of them require going out of the way to get Comet Medals for, but a lot of them are really fast, so they're worth getting. So this level is basically just about dealing with Cosmic Cones for the entire level. I might not have to deal with them in this first section if I get pretty lucky with my positioning. Okay, there's a glitch in this level where if you just barely touch the edges of these star chips, which is possible with precise enough angles and movement, then the Cosmic Cones just don't ever spawn. And so you can make it through that entire first section without the Cosmic Cones ever spawning. It doesn't really matter in terms of time, but it's pretty cool. And now we're in 2D, where I have to be really careful to not fall here, because if you make a wall jumping mistake, the Cosmic Cones will also make that same mistake, so when you try to get back up, they're all in the way, and it's basically impossible. But we're good now. This is a pretty straightforward level, and it's usually not too difficult to do if you know what you're doing. So I don't quite have enough stars to get to the end of World 3 without doing a bunch of really slow stars in World 3, because I need 29 stars, weirdly, to get to the boss level of World 3, so this is where I'm actually going to start world jumping and getting comets that I couldn't have gotten earlier. And I'm just going to do that until I get up to the requirement I need. And I'm going to use the Grand World Map to do it. So again, I'm going to zoom out here and then go straight from World 3 to World 2, so I don't have to backtrack all the way through World 2. So I'm doing this star now because it unlocks every purple coin comet in the game, but funnily enough, in order to actually unlock this star, you need to do Cloudy Quartz Comet, because that unlocks every Cosmic Clone Comet in the game, including this one. And this star might look mundane, but it's way more difficult than it might seem to do it optimally, because in order to grab each of these purple coins in one go without stopping, you need to have very specific positions and movement and angles. So, and also you have Cosmic Clones following you the entire time, which is fun. So far, so good. So I'm going to be doing these little bunny hops here because jumping in the air like this constantly speeds Mario up a little bit as opposed to just running. Okay, that was executed perfectly. That's another section that it looks so simple, but it's way, way harder than it looks. It's super easy to just miss one purple coin and then you have to backtrack for it and then you run into a Cosmic Clone and you just lose time. Yeah, that star is... There's really no other better time to get that star than now, because there are going to be some purple coin comets I want to do in my first trip through World 4. So that's the only star I'm going to get from World 2 for now, and now I'm going to go to World 1 and get a couple more comets. Starting with Sky Station Comet, this is the first speedy comet in the game. Or Speed Run Comet, as Nintendo calls it, which we all know is grammatically incorrect. But we're just going to ignore it. So these are the comets where you have to complete the level within a time limit. They actually kind of spice things up for Galaxy 2. First of all, this is a shorter version of Sky Station 1, so it skips a bunch of planets to where this star is a lot faster. But also, you only have 20 seconds when you start the level, but there's these clocks throughout the level that give 10 seconds each time you collect one. So I want to go out of my way as little as possible to collect those, but make sure I still have enough time to finish the level without dying. So yeah, as you can see, I'm already at the end of the level here. And this fight against Pee-wee Piranha is basically going to be the same as the last one, where I break Pee-wee's shell by just ground pounding it instead of spinning at it. There's actually a somewhat rare soft lock that can occur on this fight. If you shoot Pee-wee with star bits right as it transitions into a cutscene, the cutscene will never start, and Pee-wee will be kind of stuck in this state of just not dying or moving, and you can't interact with him in any way, and you can't take damage. Now, if that were to happen on this star, I would just be able to just exit level and retry, but if that were to happen on Sky Station 1, I would have actually had to reset the run. That is a legitimate soft lock. So, thankfully, that didn't happen, and it's really easy to avoid, but, you know, if there was ever a time. So we got one more Comet Star we're going to do, and that's going to be Yoshi Star's Comet, which, funnily enough, doesn't have Yoshi in it at all. So this is the first of 4 Romp Comets, which is a comet that's new to Galaxy 2. So basically, in these comets, you have to kill a number of enemies within a time period, or within a time limit, and there's usually some sort of gimmick. In this case, it's the Rainbow Star. So when you collect the Rainbow Star, Mario can kill enemies by just touching them, but also while he's running on the ground, he builds up this sort of P-run. And so if I can reach P-speed, I want to try to keep that for as long as possible. And so that's basically what this level is about. And you basically just don't want to slow down, and you don't want to run into any walls, which is easier said than done. And this level is particularly annoying because I mentioned earlier that moving objects don't update when they're not on camera. If a Spiny dies but then goes off camera, the counter doesn't update until it completes its death animation on camera. And so many players have had the situation where you get to the end and it says 29 out of 30 Spinies and you don't know what happened to the last one. So whenever that happens, you just have to scroll the camera until the Spiny actually gets on screen and dies. But overall, that was a pretty good level. I didn't really drop my momentum anywhere. It's very, very complicated to make it through there without losing speed. I don't have 29 stars yet, so I do want to collect one more star, and conveniently, there is a Hungry Luma Galaxy that I haven't unlocked yet, right here. So we're going to go spend some time unlocking and doing a star from Flip Swap. This galaxy has a similar gimmick to that of B-Block, where you have these red and blue panels that will switch every time Mario spins. So casually, what you're supposed to do is just kind of pay attention to when you spin so you don't screw yourself over. But the platforms sort of flip upwards as they're switching, so if you can long jump off of them while they're transitioning upwards, you can gain a ton of vertical and horizontal distance added to your long jump. And so I'm going to be going for these super jumps basically throughout the entire level. A couple of them are pretty tricky to do, and failing them can result in death. Thankfully, this is a relatively short level. But these first two are the harder ones of the bunch. The ones after that aren't particularly difficult, but it is feasible that I could die here. But these look really, really cool if I can pull them off. So here we go. Whee! As you can see, you can just gain an absolute bizarre amount of height and distance. Okay, that's fine. I'm gonna do another one here. Alright, so those are the two harder ones. The rest of these aren't particularly difficult. And you can cancel a spin with a long jump or a single jump, which I'll use a few times throughout this level to make the platform switch without really losing speed. Like that. I'm going to use that here to make this platform flip up so I can get kind of a mini super jump like that. That wasn't too bad of a stage. I got all the super jumps and didn't die, which is, for a no reset, really all you can ask for. Thankfully, that's a very fast stage anyways, so it doesn't really matter if you don't do the super jumps, but they do save a few seconds here and there. Especially if you do all 5 of the ones that I did. But now we're going to be able to finish off the World 3 segment of this run. So up next is Bowser Jr.'s Fearsome Fleet, and if you thought the infinite flutters you've seen in this run so far were crazy, this is probably the craziest one, or at least the craziest set of flutters. So this is infamously known as the question block flutter. It's a set of 3 particular flutters that I'm going to be using to skip a bunch of auto-scrollers in this level. So the first flutter is pretty simple, it's just infinite fluttering from the first Yoshi egg to an asteroid. The second flutter is from the asteroid straight to a question block in the middle where the airships normally spawn. And the third is a flutter that requires a very precise set of angles. And then I have to flutter through the comet metal, above a death pit, underneath a structure, and then dismount at the right time to get to the final platform of the level. I get no checkpoints during this level, and if I die, I lose about like a minute, so hopefully I get this first try. But this is a really, really cool strat. So here's the first flutter. Again, this one isn't too complicated. This second flutter is a little easy to overshoot or undershoot. Especially if you get a bad angle, but I have a pretty decent setup to make sure I always get it. And now we have this final flutter, which is the one a lot of people know the strat for. Okay, that was like perfect. That's another strat where I just made it look way easier than it actually is. So there's only a couple of angles that will actually work for that last flutter, and you have to go super low to get underneath the structure, but not too low or else you can't dismount onto the platform or you'll hit the death plane. And the hard part of that strat is actually getting that angle quickly enough. That was about as fast as you could get it, so I'm really happy with how that went. But now I have Mega Hammer, which is another really terrible pointer-based boss. So I'm going to stand back here while these first 2 bullet bills come out and fire both of them at him in a specific way, because that'll allow me to get kind of that early hit there. I'm actually not going to do that here because I want to cancel one of Mega Hammer's attacks. So he's gonna shake his hammers there. He would have smashed them together, which would have wasted a couple of seconds, so I just waited for him to do that and then shot the bullet bill. And right here I'm gonna lure 3 bullet bills, so I can use 2 of them to take out this back weak spot and then grab the 3rd one and keep it in Yoshi's mouth. Now I'm hoping it will store through the cutscene so that I can get an easy first hit on this boss once the cutscene ends. Alright, I got it. It's kind of random whether or not it does. And Mega Hammer's supposed to lower its head here so you can fire these bullet bills at the cockpit, but a side flip and a full flutter is enough to reach, and the hitbox is still active. So yeah, that fight is very complicated, especially if you have a non-cooperative pointer. But overall, that was a really, really good level. This is a very big mid-game run ender. And that's it for World 3. By the way, when I say that's it for a particular world, that doesn't mean I'm done getting stars from there. It just means I'm done with that segment, which means I've collected the grand star there. So now we're going to move on to the next world, World 4. And this is probably one of the more... This world is considered to be one of the most difficult parts of the run, especially for mid-game standards. So, a lot of strats in World 4 are really, really complicated, and most mistakes in World 4 are deaths and can be very, very costly. So, this world is really just all about minimizing those mistakes and just playing consistently. Fortunately, we don't get too many stars here as opposed to some of the other worlds. So, instead of going to Supermassive, because that galaxy sucks, we're going to take this branch in the path and go to unlock this Hungry Luma for Sweet Mystery, which is just a better level anyways. So if you remember how Bowser Jr.'s Fearsome Fleet, the last level I just did, was kind of just a bunch of infinite fluttering, this level is kind of more or less the same, except it's not as complicated as the last level. Basically, the level's all one height, and you get Yoshi right at the start, so you can just kind of do a bunch of infinite flutters from beginning to end. This is probably one of the coolest ILs in the game, because bouncing off of an object will actually reset the 10-second timer for Yoshi's speed reset. So, if you bounce off of objects, you can maintain a consistent flutter throughout the entire level, and the IL does that like 3 different times. It's really, really cool. But none of those are really that safe for RTA, so I'm just going to kind of do some standard infinite flutters. This first one's probably the harder one of the bunch, because I'm going to be essentially doing it with a flying angle, and I want to try to get it to go all the way over to the comet metal.
Yes.
But this should be a good angle. Alright, that was perfect. So basically just using infinite fluttering to fly over these platforming sections instead of actually platforming across them like you're supposed to. So this last infinite flutter will allow me to skip these flip switches and skip the launch star that they activate. But this infinite flutter is particularly scary because it's really easy to... If you fall, you land on an invisible floor, and you have to flutter slowly to get back up. You have to basically spend like 20 seconds finding a ledge to fall off of, and that can be really slow. Alright, I should be back now. So here is Flipsville 1. This level is pretty broken. There's a lot of cool gravity exploits you can do here. Starting with this. I basically just skip from the first planet to the second. And that unloads a kill plane, so I can get on top of this roof here and backflip, get some momentum off this roof slope, and just kind of start falling very slowly towards the boss planet here. And if I spin at the right time, onto its gravity field and just skip the entire level. Now I gotta fight Glamdozer here. This is a relatively straightforward boss. So the entire boss is vulnerable, so I'm just gonna kind of camp out underneath its chin and then ground pound it as soon as it becomes vulnerable. So this fight goes by pretty quickly. So yeah, Flipsville in general is just kind of a very impressive galaxy for speedruns. This star in particular is kind of the fan favorite, but Flipsville 2 and Flipsville Comet also have some tricks up their sleeve. So this will be the first of 3 stars in this run where we're going to get a letter from a mysterious source, aka totally not Rosalina. And this is going to they're going to give us 50 star bits. And there are 3 of these letters I'll be getting throughout the run, and this will account for the extra 150 star bits I need in order for the final Hungry Luma Galaxy of the run. And notice how it's to the Luma and not Mario. So now we're going to do Flipsville 2, which has 2 really big skips right at the start here. So Nintendo really wasn't trying when they made this level, so you can kind of skip the spin drill on both of these first 2 planets, and it's not really difficult to do at all. It's actually kind of pathetic how easy this is. So here you're supposed to go all the way around and dig, or you can just kind of jump around this wall, as I'm about to do. And then here you can just wall jump on this structure for no good reason. And now we're in the Silver Stars room where I have to make a pretty tight cycle here. Alright. That's the hardest part of this entire section, so once you get past that, you're good to go. This part is kind of half auto-scroller, half cycle-based, but it really doesn't matter too much how fast you go in certain places, but you do have to wait. So yeah, that's pretty much the fastest cycle you can get here. Getting that star is kind of awkward. It's not always consistent. So something I haven't brought up about comets yet is another condition for unlocking a comet is you have to collect all the non-secret stars in that galaxy. But you also have to collect another star from another galaxy in order for the comet to spawn. And I'll be calling those buffer stars. So right now I need Flipsville's comet to spawn, so I'm actually going to get this star as the buffer star. Because I fulfilled all the other requirements for Flipsville's comet to spawn, and now I just need to get a star from another galaxy. This star is deceptively difficult because getting all these purple coins optimally requires staying on the ground as Yoshi for as long as possible, because Yoshi actually runs really fast while on the ground. But not stopping and also not missing purple coins is very difficult. So I'm going to probably be silent for most of this star. And also every time I jump, I'm going to do a short little hop with Yoshi. I'm going to do a short flutter by double tapping A like that, which cancels the flutter. And keeps Yoshi it doesn't keep Yoshi in the air for as long. This should be fine. As you can see, yeah, you have to... This star takes a lot of practice to get down in order to do it fast without missing any purple coins. I'm not doing a very great job of demonstrating that. So yeah, a couple of missed purple coins here and there, but nothing too major. Thankfully, this is one of the few levels you do with Yoshi where you don't really have to infinite flutter. Unless you fall off the edge, in which case you have to in order to save yourself, but that shouldn't really happen as long as you know what you're doing. So that star is pretty rough. This next star, even worse. So, this star is another purple coin star, but this time it takes place in the 2D area where the gravity's constantly switching, where the silver stars were in Flipsville 2. This is a very tight cycle-based star, and another thing to keep in mind is when you use the spin drill to drill and dig, its hitbox, well, Mario's hitbox actually grows, and he can collect purple coins from a huge radius around him. And so I'm going to be using that a lot in this star. The first half of this star requires me to make a lot of really tight cycles, so again, I'm probably going to be focusing here. It's really easy for mistakes to snowball on this level, so hopefully that doesn't happen. Alright, so far so good. The rest of this level isn't too bad. Provided I don't do anything stupid. Alright, I meant to kill that fuzzy, but it's not a huge deal. If I could just kill him right there. Alright, that was a really good level. I didn't miss any cycles there. That's enough. It's not necessarily a star where you have to improvise if you mess up, but it's really easy to like miss a cycle, and then in the process of trying to back it up, you just lose even more time by making stupid decisions. So thankfully that star went perfectly. And now we're completely done with Sweet Mystery and Flipsville, so we can say goodbye to those two galaxies. And now we're able to go back and forth between two other galaxies, namely Chompworks and Starshine Beach. So Chompworks 1 is unfortunately one of the slower stars in this run, and it's kind of filled with a bunch of auto-scrollers, but it does give access to two really fast stars, so it is worth doing. And there is a lot to take in on this first planet here. So you're not normally able to run up this slope here, but by running along the edge of it, I'm not affected by the slope's physics, so I can use that to get up here a little bit quicker. And I'm going to go over here and try to get this Comet Medal without screwing up. And now I want to make my way over to this platform before the Chomp gets there. I'm going to stun this Octumba with Star Bits so its coin doesn't get in the way of my launch star path, and I want to long jump into this launch star so that when I land on the next planet, I don't have to deal with the landing stun at all. So yeah, a lot to take in on that planet. And then there's this planet, which is just long jumping, and then I'm going to take some damage here to get to this launch star. So this planet has a strat that we didn't used to think was possible. If you brush up on the left edge of that seesaw for just long enough and in just the right way, it tips just enough so that this Chomp can make it on without getting crushed. We used to think that the first Chomp you spawn has to die, but it was discovered that then you could just manipulate the seesaw and then you could get the first Chomp onto there correctly. Unfortunately, you cannot do anything to get to this Chomp in time. This first one will break no matter how fast you go, unless you have a second player handy. So I'm doing this run with only one player, but if you have a second player, they take the form of an orange Luma, and they can like grab coins and star bits, and they can like stun and kill certain enemies. They can actually hold this chain chomp in place so that you can make it there in time before it breaks, and that can save a decent amount of time on this level. But unfortunately, I don't have anybody to play with, and using 2 controllers at once is not really a good thing to try and do. And it doesn't really save much time anywhere else in the run, so this entire run is just done 1P, and that's kind of the standard for this game. And yeah, this last part's just kind of a big auto-scroller. There's really nothing you can do to speed it up. And if you break your chomp there, it's even more miserable because, again, since there's nothing you can do to speed it up, you just kind of have to wait patiently for the next chomp to make it all the way, and it's really frustrating. I would know.
Oh, yeah.
So now that that level's done, it's time for Chompworks 2, which contains everybody's favorite power-up from Galaxy 1, the Spring Mushroom. Now, thankfully, we can skip it for these first 2 planets of the star, because, again, Nintendo's really good at making games. And it is possible to skip it for the entire level, but it's both easier and faster to use it on the last planet. But what's really important about this level is that there are elevators on the last planet that are moving while I'm on the first planet. So if I don't have really good movement here, it might not be possible to make a really fast platform cycle on the final planet. That should be fast enough. The platforms don't move while I'm on this planet though, so that's kind of a nice little benefit. So, when you spin with the nunchuck after a wall jump, you can actually spin a lot sooner, and I can use that here to do that. So I wouldn't normally be able to spin that early if I was using the Wii Remote, but with the nunchuck I can. Also shouts to Pac-Man. So here I have to use the Spring Mushroom, and hopefully I'm fast enough to make the platform cycle. Let's see if I can make this. Might barely be able to. Alright. Now I have to stay on this. Alright, we made it. That's about 5 to 6 seconds saved. And it's incredibly tight. It's a lot easier if you get the frame perfect jump cancel at the start of the level, but unfortunately I didn't get it, so I had to play well. And as you can see, I just barely made it with the fast movement, so really, really risky to go for in runs. So that's all for Chompworks for now, and now we're going to get to go to Starshine Beach, which is sort of an homage to Super Mario Sunshine. I'm sure a lot of people know that game. And this is a cool galaxy because it's one of the few galaxies that isn't necessarily linearly structured, and instead it's kind of like this one gigantic planet where you can kind of do things in whatever order you want. And that's really good for this level because it's a Silver Stars mission, and the Silver Stars are kind of spread all about. So there's a pretty interesting route to get all these Silver Stars in the fastest manner possible.
Yes!
And Yoshi's in this level, and he doesn't dissolve when touching water in this game, unlike Sunshine, so we can do a lot of cool stuff with him in this level. So to start, I'm going to bounce off this crabber here so I can stun it. I'm going to get on Yoshi and eat said crabber. And now I'm going to Infinite Flutter up here. I'm going to use this crabber to... if I can get up here, that would be nice. I'm going to use this crabber to break this glass containing the Silver Star. Now I have to Infinite Flutter from here to that tower. And this is a tricky Infinite Flutter because the perspective isn't too great, so sometimes you might seem like you're perfectly lined up with the tower, but you're actually either too far forward or too far back, and both of those can be pretty annoying time losses. But that was perfect, so I don't have to worry too much. And now I can use the Dash Pepper, and the Dash Pepper allows Yoshi to run on deep water. And this ending here can be pretty cool if I get this strat properly. Alright, so I somehow got that with a really weird angle. That's similar to the trick I did in Hightail Falls 1 at the end, where I just used I dismount off of Dash Yoshi with while I'm running up a steep slope and I can gain a lot of height. This is one of the few common medals that's actually pretty out of the way. You have to dedicate like 10 plus seconds to it, but it nets us one of the fastest Comet Stars and one of the last ones in the run, so it's definitely worth getting. And we really haven't found any better alternative to routing it out. So yeah, that was a pretty good level. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit in that level that can be really difficult to optimize. So up next, Starshine Beach 2 is another relatively short level. It's actually one of the more roundabout levels to do casually, because there's a lot of tasks you have to do and a lot of steps you have to take in order to get a cloud mushroom all the way to the tower where the clouds are. However, our good friend Chucksters from Piana 5 are actually going to be useful in the star, because I can just have a Chuckster throw me onto the highest cloud. And again, you're not supposed to stand on clouds if you don't have Cloud Mario, but we can use the small frame window. We have to jump off the clouds to get onto the tower. And so that's going to allow me to skip like a minute of doing stuff in this level. It's actually not that hard either. So I'm just going to kind of long jump my way over there, and I am going to be turning the camera here to manipulate the cloud cycle so they're a bit more favorable. I'm actually going to do it a little bit more than necessary just to be safe. So I gotta spin as soon as Mario starts descending so I get backwards momentum, and then I jump off the cloud and wall jump onto the tower like that. And that skips a minute of gameplay. That frame window might seem tight, but it's actually fairly generous, and that trick is really easy once you get it down. So this is the only time the Purple Idiot brings us down to the bottom of the starship for a power-up that we can actually use, the Cloud Mushroom. But again, there's literally no point to it being there, so we're just going to make our way back to the button. And now there's one more star we need to get before we can move on to Bowser's Gravity Gauntlet, and that's this star, which is a really, really big pain in the neck. So Chompworks Comet is the last planet of Chompworks 1, but with Cosmic Clones, which means, first of all, it's basically just an auto-scroller, but you can't get a frame-perfect IL time on here. And second of all, backtracking is pretty much impossible because of the Cosmic Clones, so mistakes here are extremely costly. So, this level is it's boring, but it's also really stressful, because it's really easy to make a stupid mistake that loses a lot of time. By breaking that Chomp at roughly the same time the Cosmic Clone spawned, the next Chomp spawns a little bit sooner, which is like the only thing you can do to make this level faster. And now the rest of this is just waiting, while trying to stay out of the Cosmic Clone's way. So right here I'm gonna crawl so that I kind of keep the Cosmic Clones all bunched up together here so that they don't bother me. Alright, from here on out it's basically guaranteed. Okay, yeah. I unfortunately got hit at the last second there, so I don't think I'm gonna collect the star with this. Yeah. That costs a few seconds. Imagine losing time to a free auto-scroller. Thankfully, though, that's one of the more consistent stars to do once you sort of have a good way of doing it. And now, we can move on to the boss level of World 4, which is Bowser's Gravity Gauntlet. So, what's interesting about this level is that there are two kind of different skips that allow us to skip a pretty big chunk of the level, and you're actually going to see me go for both of them in this run. So the first one I'm going to do is called Behind the Castle, and the name kind of speaks for itself as to what you do. So in this 2D castle midway through the level, there's lava rendered behind it, and by lava boosting in a specific way behind the castle, I can enter the gravity field of the last 2D section of the level. And I have to do this on this star, and not the other skip, because I need to go slightly ahead of where Behind the Castle is done to get the common medal, which I will need for later in the run. And this is another lava boost drop that's going to require me to get the life mushroom, so I'm going to go ahead and get that here. This skip is another skip that's way harder than it looks. There's actually a lot more going into it than is visually, than is visible to you. So here we go. Alright, that should be good. Alright, perfect. So that skip saves about like 25 to 30 seconds, depending on how well you can do the level normally, but the tricky thing about it is, you actually have to be a specific distance away from the castle in order to not die, because if you're too close to the castle, then Mario gets kind of stuck in this weird falling state until he dies, and if you're too far away, you just fall off the stage. And so you have to be a very specific distance away, and that setup can sometimes be really hard to do. And also, actually maneuvering around the pillar is really awkward because of its sloped nature. Okay, that was really stupid. My Z press kind of got delayed, so I wasn't able to ground pound at a good trajectory. Missing those locks is one of the most frustrating mistakes ever. So now it's time for the World 4 Bowser fight. So this is where the fights get a bit more complicated. So this fight in particular is kind of annoying because Bowser will only drop 2 meteors instead of the usual 3. And there's also shockwaves coming off of both his meteors and his punches, which means there's a lot more you have to dodge. And that makes missing hits on this fight a lot more problematic, because it's a lot easier to have it happen, especially because Bowser can punch out the meteors, so it's possible for him to punch out both meteors and not even give you a chance, which is really frustrating. So here, for this first hit, I'm going to go for a punch cancel. So I'm going to wait for Bowser to charge up a punch attack before hitting him with the meteor. And so as you saw there, he was about to charge up a punch attack, and he's supposed to do it here, but I canceled it, so now he's just going to spawn the meteors right away. Because it's video games. And that just nets a couple seconds of time save. And I don't have to do that for any other hits in this fight, so the rest of this fight will play out pretty standardly. One thing that is worth bringing up here, Bowser's shell can actually deflect the meteors. It's not so common that it will happen in either this fight or the lava layer fight, but in the Galaxy Generator fight, it seems like his shell's hitbox is a lot bigger, and so it's a lot more common for Bowser's shell to deflect the meteors on that fight, and that basically just costs you 20 seconds right from the get-go, which is really, really annoying, especially at the end of the run. There's just one more hit here. Alright, no missed hits, that's good. Now we just kind of have to sit through this set of cutscenes again. I guess I can use this time to sort of plug. If you are interested in learning this game or Galaxy 1, you should join the Super Mario Galaxy Discord. We have a Discord server for both games, and there's a pretty expansive and helpful community for both games. And I also have a playlist of tutorials on my YouTube channel for various levels and skips and tricks that apparently have helped a lot of people, so feel free to check those out if you want. And that's it for World 4. So, naturally, because this is totally how numbers work, we just finished World 4, so the next world we're actually going to go to is World 2! Don't worry, it makes sense. So, there's a couple of stars that, for routing convenience, they're better to get now, and a couple of stars that I couldn't have gotten before because they required certain prerequisites that I didn't have beforehand. So instead of doing stars in World 5 right away, I'm actually going to use the Grand World map to go back to World 2 and begin a bit of some cleanup. And this will once again help me kind of increase my star total so that I'll have enough stars to get to the boss level without having to do anything super out of the way. So, first off, I'm going to do Boulder Bowl 1. This used to be the 15th star in the run, but now we do it a lot later because of the Honey Bloom 1 route, and we can actually use 2 Male Toad Letter Warps instead of just 1 to save time. And I'll explain that after I do this star. But now within this star, there is a pretty interesting gravity exploit I can do to skip 1 planet, and this planet over here involves killing a bunch of enemies that are really slow and tedious to kill. So instead I'm just going to use this gravity exploit, and you're actually going to be seeing me doing it 2 different ways in this run, with and without Rock Mario. With Rock Mario, it's easier, but no, with Rock Mario it's harder, but I have to do it on this level because I need Rock Mario to get the Comet Medal. And what's so annoying about this skip is that if you fail it, you die and have to redo everything, including getting the Comet Medal. So hopefully I can get this here. There's a couple of good visual cues and a pretty decent setup for getting this, but this still loses a lot of time if you fail it. Alright, got it first try. Nice. So that skip saves like a minute. Or even more than that, because that planet is god-awful. So now we get to fight Rolodillo, which is one of the more annoying bosses in the run. So this first hit is pretty straightforward, nothing too badly can go wrong here. On these next 3 hits though, I actually am going to try to avoid staying out of Rolodillo's line of sight by kind of rolling at him from behind like this, because otherwise he does this rolling attack that's really slow. The problem with this is that he's trying to chase me while I'm trying to chase him, so that makes movement here really, really awkward. And in addition to that, I'm doing these jump spins to sort of extend the length of my roll. Okay, that was really horrible. You can do jump spins to extend the length of your roll, which can allow you to hit him in only 1 roll, but you need to have good lineups for that. And sometimes the planet's gravity can just eat your jumps, and then you end up in his line of sight and you lose time. So here's the Male Toad Lighter warp we used to utilize here. So because I just got Boulder Bowl 1, I'm now brought down to the engine room to see Rock Mario. But because I now have Boulder Bowl 1 and Chompworks 1, I'm going to get a Male Toad Letter for a star that just appeared in Boulder Bowl. And that's going to warp me out of the engine room and straight to the Male Toad, which will save a lot of travel time. We used to use that with the 15-star Male Toad Letter, but now we can use it twice with this Male Toad Letter as well. And that saves about like 5 seconds or so. And now I'm actually going to re-enter Boulder Bowl and do that letter star. So here you're going to get to see me do Boulder Bowl 1 skip without the Rock Mushroom, and as you're about to see, it's quite a bit easier. The only really awkward part is getting past this ramp here, because the camera sometimes isn't that cooperative, but with a good setup it's pretty easy. And from here on out the skip is pretty much free. You just run up the left, long jump, spin, and you enter the gravity field like that. But now we get to the annoying part of this level. So I have to lower this Goomba over to this Gearmo over here, and there's a pretty consistent setup so that the Goomba doesn't die here, but if you mess it up in any way, the Goomba can just stop in the middle of the road and get flattened, and you only get 2 Goombas to work with, so if both of them die, you have to restart the level. Also, you can soft lock there for literally no reason, and it's really annoying whenever. It's extremely rare, and no one is entirely sure what causes it to happen, but it's only ever happened to me once during a 242-star run. And thankfully this game autosaves, so if it did happen, it wouldn't be too big of a deal. Like, the run wouldn't be completely dead. I would just have to reset and take the insignificant time loss. But like I said, it's extremely rare. It's like once in a blue moon, if that. Again, I've done like probably hundreds of runs that have gotten through that star, and I've only ever had it happen to me once. So now I'm going to do Hightail Falls Comment. This is another star I could have done earlier in the run, but again, for routing convenience, it's just better to do it now. And this is basically Hightail Falls 1, but on a timer, and Nintendo gives you way too much time to do these missions. This isn't one of the speedy comments where I have to collect the clocks. I just have to get through the end with 3 minutes. And the only major differences here are that there are some holes in the ground and there's meteors falling, and for the most part, neither of those are an issue. Also, the ending of this level is going to be slightly different because I don't need the comet medal since this is the comet, so I'm going to be able to do a faster strat. So if you weren't here earlier, basically this level is just kind of about maximizing the amount of time I get to use the dash pepper for. An important thing to note is that if I'm climbing up a wall and I bonk on something head on, Yoshi will fall all the way down and I have to retry climbing up the wall again, which is a big pain, and that can easily happen right here. But it didn't happen there, which is nice. So again, I'm taking that left path there because that dash pepper's there, and I can keep its effect going during this section. And I'm gonna grab this dash pepper late for the same reason. Those jumps don't really save or lose any time, they're just cool to do. So I'm actually going to be taking the launch star this time, and I'm going to be going for this kind of leap of faith here. I have to jump at an extremely precise time for this. Nice, I got it first try. So basically by jumping at the very edge of that wall there, you can gain a super big amount of height, and just make it up straight to the star platform. And that is faster if you're not going to be getting the comet medal. But it's hard to save time with. And now is time for probably one of the worst stars in the run, because it's the only star that's pretty much entirely RNG. So get your blessed RNGs out, because I'm really going to need them. So this star entails killing 30 of those crabber enemies on that planet where Rolodillo was. Their movement is just completely random, and I have to kill them within a time limit, otherwise I have to redo the entire level. And I have to kill them with Rock Mario, which is not exactly the easiest thing to control. Thankfully, there is a bit of tech that is never explained anywhere in the game that makes the star magnitudes easier. If you're rolling with Rock Mario and you jump and press Z, you can cancel Rock Mario form early, and this is never explained anywhere in the game. So here we go. Oh, this is not off to a good start. I wanted to roll in a different direction than that. So I'm just going to be kind of hoping that the crabbers group up for like the first 20 to 24 or 25 that I can get. And then once I hit about that number, I'm going to start focusing on sort of the individual ones. And this is not very good RNG right now. So again, that's me utilizing the jump out of Rock Mario early tech. Again, if you don't know that tech, because it's never explained anywhere in the game, this star is kind of almost impossible. Alright, where are the last crabbers? There's one, and there's one. And where you kill the last crabber also matters, because you want to be like right next to the star. Please die. That wasn't too great. You can finish that star with like over 20 seconds left on the clock. Just for reference, I've had to finish that star with 1 second on the timer remaining, which is a giant Monka S whenever that has to happen. You don't often cut it that close, though, but that unfortunately wasn't too great. That was actually kind of slow. Here's the second of 3 50-star-bit mail-toad letters we get in the run. But it's not like we're done with killing creatures yet, because now we get to visit our good friend Gobblegut again. So, the last star we have to do in this cleanup session is this, which is Fiery Flotilla Comet. This is just the Gobble Gut fight on a time limit. Again, Nintendo gives you too much time to do these missions, or at least for us speedrunners. This is basically, I'm going to be going for the exact same strats I went for in the first fight. So hopefully this will go the exact same way, but if it doesn't, you'll get to see just how terrible this fight is. So again, the basic premise of this fight is I'm trying to hit all 6 of Gobblegut's bellyache bulges while he's in midair. And I need to make sure everything goes exactly right, or else I lose time. So this first phase is generally the easier of the 2 phases. The second phase is where it's easier to lose time, because it's easy to get hit by Gobblegut if you mess something up, and you have to do this turnaround in a very specific way. But 2 for 2 perfect Gobblegut, that's really good. And here's something fun. We don't fight this boss in any percent, thank God, but there is a variant of Gobblegut that's on fire. Imagine that. Again, thankfully we don't have to fight that boss in this run. We only have to fight those 2 Gobbleguts. But that will mark the end of this backtracking session for the run, which means I am done with Worlds 1 and 2. There's no other stars I want to get from there that are fast. So now I can finally move on to the bulk of World 5. And to do that, I'm going to use my handy-dandy Grand World Map. So to start off, we're going to go to Space Storm and do Space Storm 1. This is a star that I am required to get. There's no way around it. There's no alternative to get through the game. But fortunately, this is a pretty quick star. It is rather complicated, though, because there's a lot of really tight movement you have to do, especially on that giant cylinder planet. And we have to deal with pole stars, which are pointer-based and really finicky to work with. So at the start of this planet, there's a really finicky long jump I can go for that can allow me to save about 5 seconds in platform cycles. And I got it. Alright, that was perfectly played. Second planet. That single long jump took me an hour to get consistent at. That's how hard it is. Now I just have to lure this bob bomb over here to break some glass. Kind of just a bunch of waiting here. And we can just long jump straight to the launch star instead of walking all the way around. And now this last section is just navigating through a bunch of pole stars. Doing pole stars optimally involves releasing yourself from the pole star before you reach its center so that you maintain momentum. And that can be really hard to do. It's really hard to keep track of, especially with all the obstacles in the way. Thankfully, when I get shocked, I get suspended in midair for a little bit, which gives me an opportunity to grab another pole star. So I'm not instantly doomed if that happens. But now that I've collected that star, I have access to basically all of World 5 now, except for the boss level. But I am going to stay in Space Storm to get Space Storm 2, which optimally is actually the second fastest star in the run. Which is kind of sad, because this level kind of pays homage to Buoy Base Galaxy from Galaxy 1, and even has the Buoy Base music, which I understand is a bit of a fan favorite. Sadly, though, if this level goes well, you won't be able to hear it for too long. So, the main gimmick with this level is that there's a bunch of switches you can hit to slow down time, because the moving elements in this level are actually a lot faster than they should be. But I'm going to try to make it through this level without hitting any of them, because I'm a speedrunner and I'm good at the game, right? This is a very tough level to play optimally. So at the start here, instead of going to the right and dealing with all that nonsense, I'm going to jump to this wall on the left here. And this will allow me to skip the entire first section of the level. I I long jumped one time too many. So now I'm going to get on top of this womp here and use its upwards momentum to try to get up here. Alright, my cycles were off there, so I'm amazed that worked. Now I'm going to triple jump here to skip some top men fights and grab the star like that. That was a little suboptimal, but still really good. I only lost like 2 to 3 seconds to an optimal Space Storm 2 there. I'm actually kind of thankful the cycles ended up working out. That's another level where if you mess up your cycles, you kind of just have to improvise and hope everything lines up. But yeah, like I said, you're not going to get to hear much of that music. Now we can move on into the bulk of World 5. We're not going to be getting too many stars here, but some of the stars we'll be getting here are pretty interesting. So starting off, we're going to go to Shiverburn, the Freeze Flame Galaxy of this game. And this will be the first star I'm going to do here is the Secret Star, which is yet another chimp challenge. So if you missed your chance to guess the points that I'm going to get in Freezy Flake, you can do so here. And the rules are basically the same. You can guess anywhere between 600 and 900 points and only guess in multiples of 10. And whoever is closest or gets it exactly right wins. So the only real noteworthy thing in this level is using clouds here to skip over this large sea. And this operates pretty much the exact same way as the Freezy Flake minigame. You can even get the same patterns and they can be rotated in the same ways. Literally the only difference is that the high score you need to break is 100 points higher, which means it's way harder. There are other chimp challenges in the game that you unlock by like getting letters, but those have time limits of like 2 to 3 minutes. And since you can't stop the timer early, you're basically just forced to sit through them with nothing to do to speed them up. So 7 to 70 was the score I got last time, if I recall, so I want to try to beat that. It looks like I should be able to. Alright. 800's pretty good. That star can be a little bit tricky for newer players who aren't very good at skating, because it can be sometimes, if you don't have the patterns well down, it can sometimes be really tight to get the high score and the time limit. Fortunately, though, that's the last star that revolves around the time limit. At least for chimp challenges. So next up is Shiverburn 1. This is another relatively long level, but it's actually one of my favorite levels in the run, because there's a lot of really cool tricks and movement you get to do here. So, at the start of this level, there's a gravity exploit I can do here where I can skip from the beginning of the first planet to the end of the second planet using Cloud Mario. And I'm going to do a rather complicated setup for it, using this platform as sort of a launching pad. That should work. Nice, I got it. So I gotta detour a little bit in front of the launch star so I can get the Comet Medal. And I'm gonna ditch Cloud Mario by jumping into the lava here so that I lose the floaty effect and make this section... I can make the movement in this section a little less awkward. So I'm gonna turn the camera here to manipulate the timing of the icicles up ahead, because what I'm gonna do here is instead of firing coconuts back at these guys, I'm just gonna long jump past them and lava boost to the icicles behind them. So there's 2 pretty large scale skips in this level. And now it's time for Prince Picante. So there is a faster strat to do this boss, but it's very RNG dependent and I'm not very good at it, so I'm actually not going to do it. And instead I'm going to do the no RNG strat, which I find to be a lot safer and a lot more consistent. So I intentionally missed that first hit, because I'm going to hit him with the second coconut from all the way over here. I'm basically setting him up to where he's never on that side of the battlefield for the second or third hits, because he'll do this upward firing attack that makes the fight kind of random, which you can use for a faster strat, but again, it's really RNG dependent, and I'm not very consistent at it, so I just opt to do this strat because I find it a lot safer. it loses only like 10 seconds optimally to the other method. So it's really not much of a time difference, and it's a lot more consistent, because you can lose a lot more time by failing the RNG strat.
Oh, yeah.
So here's the last of the 350 star bit and mail toad letters. So this will get me to the 1800 star bits I'm going to need for World 6's Hungry Luma. And at this point I don't need to collect any more star bits. So we're done with Shiverburn for now, and now we're going to go to Upside Dizzy, which is the sequel level to Right Side Down from earlier. It's basically Right Side Down, except it's like 50 times as awkward, because the gravity changes are in much more random locations. And Upside Dizzy 1 is a very, very, very cycle-based level. Your movement here needs to be spot on to make the right cycles, and you basically have to improvise if you don't. Right from the start here, it's very difficult. I got the random flip around in midair. That sometimes happens, and I have no idea why. Thankfully, it doesn't lose too much time, though. And I long jump into that one gravity field because it makes Mario shoot super high up there. I'm gonna go for this Goomba bounce into the pipe. Got it. And in here, the gravity changes on a cycle, and I am not in control of it at all. If you don't know what you're doing here, you're just gonna stumble through here and lose a lot of time. That's fine. Alright, that was mostly a perfectly played level. Again, that's a level where if you make one simple movement error, everything just goes bad. Especially in that hallway, because once you get thrown off your cycles, you just don't know what to do. So now we're going to re-enter Upside Dizzy for the Secret Star, and this is a similar Secret Star to the one in Right Side Down, where it's another box-burning minigame. This level has a cool little Goomba bounce to get into the pipe at the start here, that basically relies on me not screwing up the backflip at the start of the level, so I better not get that random flip in midair that I got last time. This is a pretty annoying trick to fail, because it loses quite a few seconds. Alright, I got it. So now I'm going to do a precise triple jump with this fire flower to get into this pipe here. You have to do this in a specific way to break the boxes with enough momentum to get into the pipe. So this box mini game is a little easier to do optimally because they're a bit more tightly packed together, and you don't have to throw them as the fireballs as at many of awkward angles. But you are on a stricter time limit here. Another thing to keep in mind is that the fireballs don't actually come out of Mario's center, they come out of his right hand. So if it looks like you're perfectly aligned to break the fireballs, you're actually not. And a 9 is optimal there, so that was really, really good. That's it for Upside Dizzy. This Upside Dizzy is one of the hardest galaxies to do in the late game because of how finicky it is and how easy it is for mistakes to snowball, so the fact that it went that well is really good for a marathon. But now it's time to get your resident sleepers out. Well, not really, because this level isn't entirely resident sleepery. Instead, we got another spoopy level, and it's called Boo Moon. So, the interesting thing about Boo Moon is that when I started running this game, we only did the Secret Star here, which will be the first star I do. But now we actually do 2 stars here, and this is something that's been a thing since like 2015. So the unfortunate thing about this level is that it's kind of just a bunch of snake block auto-scrollers. There are some things we can do to speed up the auto-scrollers, but for the most part it's just kind of waiting around a bunch on snake blocks. This first planet is particularly interesting because it's only faster to long jump at the beginning or at the end of the planet, because everywhere else, due to the way the planet is curved, it's actually slower. Okay, so there are some launch stars where when you land from them, some planets you're not actually able to go into first-person mode, but if you press up on the D-pad on the first possible frame when you land, you will still get a landing cancel. But it is frame perfect, so I go for them, but I rarely get them. And now it's just kind of a bunch of waiting here. So keep in mind how this wall kind of bends upwards and the gravity kind of changes here, because that's going to be important for Blue Moon 1. Yeah, here I just kind of have to spend some time just kind of jumping around here. And there's a con of metal on the way, so might as well grab it. And we can skip a good portion of this last auto-scroll by just long jumping straight to the star. That's actually a skip I would recommend you do if you're playing the game casually, because that snake block is a pain to navigate. It's really fast. It's easy for you to kind of it's easy for the snake block to kind of get ahead of you and then you just die, or the octoboost can just knock you off. So yeah, that's a skip you should do if you're playing the game casually. And now I have Blue Moon 1 next. So this is the star we didn't used to do in any percent when I started running the game, but then Nemi, who is the current world record holder for this game, found a skip in the snake block auto-scroller section that makes this star fast enough for any percent. Also by Luigi. So things will get, this will pretty much start off the same way Blue Moon Secret did, but things will get a little bit more interesting midway through the snake blocks. I pressed up on the D-pad way too early for that to work. That long jump is always scarier than it needs to be, because of how tight it is. So, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to activate this wall, and then I'm going to run back to this last snake block, wait for the gravity to switch, and then I'm going to jump onto here, long jump off, spin, and then enter the launch star like that. And I couldn't do that skip on Blue Moon Secret because I needed to ride the snake blocks all the way to both get the common medal and get to the secret set of snake blocks. But that skip does save time on this star. And it's quite awkward because your movement controls are slightly weird when you're on the side of the snake block like that. The angles aren't perfect. And there's no real visual cue for stuff, so you just kind of have to go by feel. And the movement for the rest of the star is really cool, as you saw there. So that was it for that level. That's a relatively complicated skip, though. It does take some kind of figuring out to sort of get the timing and the positioning and everything. And the reason why this star wasn't initially in any percent is actually because of this mail toad letter you get for completing both Blue Moon 1 and Space Storm 2. So we need 55 stars to get to the boss level of World 5, and we only have 54. Luckily, there's a comet right here. And it's really fast, so we're going to do it. So Shiverburn's Comet is one of the easier stars in the run, because you just have to kill 30 Octuba enemies on the Prince Vicante planet with Rainbow Mario. What makes this star kind of fun is that you would think that skating is faster than running, but it's actually easier to make tighter turns while running. So what I'm going to do to optimize the movement of the star is I'm actually going to skate to build up momentum, and then once I grab the rainbow star, I just jump out of the skating animation and I just start running. And if I do this right, I should be able to kill all 30 of these enemies on one rainbow star with a couple seconds to spare. was perfect. That's a pretty fun star to do. Because it's just kind of running around and killing enemies and making tight turns. Oh boy. So, that level's done. Which means now it's time to move on to one of my least favorite levels in late game. Bowser Jr.'s Boom Bunker. So if you've noticed, we haven't had to do any like motion control based levels in this run, and that will continue to remain the case, so we're not going to do any Fluzzard levels or the ball rolling levels. This level does have something that is kind of motion control based, and that is cannon shots. They are pointer based, and the 2 cannon shots I have to make in this level have very small targets to aim at, especially the first one. Missing either of them results in very costly deaths. And there's also a very finicky skip at the end of the level, and a boss fight that you can easily get screwed over by. So this first part's the hardest part, though. And hand RNG can really come into play here, because since it's pointer based, when you press the A button, sometimes that causes your hand to move by a slight amount, and your aim becomes just wrong enough where you miss it. This first cannon shot's really precise. Alright, I took my time there. So I want to hit this Boomerang Bro in the face so that I insta-kill it, and from there I have an easy setup to kill this one. If you miss that, you lose like 35 seconds. So I played it really safe there. This second cannon shot is a bit more lenient, thankfully. But then now after this I have a pretty finicky skip to do where you're supposed to use clouds to get to the end of this section, but that's overrated. So we're just going to do this instead. That long jump only saves like 1 to 2 seconds at best, but it looks so cool, and it's not terribly difficult once you get it down. And now I have to fight Bowser Jr. for the last time in his Boomsday machine. This boss either makes you or itself look like a complete joke. Hopefully it will make Bowser Jr. look like a joke. These first 2 hits are not particularly difficult, aside from minor time losses from like getting hit. You basically just use clouds to get to the top of Boomsday, and then hit him like that. This third hit is the hard one because I have to move really quickly before Bowser Jr. gets too close to me, or else I won't be able to use the clouds to climb up all the way. Alright, that was perfect. And this is where Bowser Jr. canonically dies. And there he goes. Yeah, he's not in 3D World or Odyssey after this game, so canonically he's pretty much dead. And that's it for World 5. So now we only have 1 world left, but unfortunately it is both the longest world and one of the hardest worlds. This is where runs go to die, pretty much, in SMG2 Any %. There's a lot of really, really difficult stages in here, and a lot of mistakes in this at this point in the run are super costly. And when you're this far in the run on good pace, your nerves are usually really, really high, and it's super easy to make mistakes. So hopefully we can make it through World 6 with as few of those as possible. So the first thing we gotta do in World 6 is Melting Monster. This is the only 3-star galaxy in the run where I will actually be getting all 3 stars in one go, because it just so happens I can do it that way. This is not a forgiving level. If you play it safe, it can be pretty simple, but when you're trying to go fast and play optimally, there's a lot of risky business you can do amongst these 3 stars, and mistakes can be very costly. So starting off, we're doing Melty Monster 1. We have this really complicated full star section to get through, and the tornadoes in the second section are on global cycles from the moment I enter the level, so I have to play really good from the beginning of this level to make the optimal cycle. That was pretty good, though. And now we get to the second section of the level where I'll be doing a bunch of mini platforming skips. And I'm going to be doing a lot of lava boosting because the opportunity presented itself. So, if provided nothing goes horribly wrong here, I should be able to make the tornado cycle. Uh-oh. Okay, I thought I was going to bonk on that platform. That long jump kind of got cut short. So I made the optimal tornado cycle. And I made it to the swing without getting burned. But now things are going to get a little bit risky, because this final section of the level is really annoying. Every single one of these tiny planets has its own gravitational orbit. And we can do that cool little long jump to thankfully skip the first few of them. So I'm going to wait here for this magma to get out of my way. And hitting this crystal on the left side is much easier than hitting it on the right. So that's why I went out of my way there. That was very good. Again, that level is very, very finicky with everything you have to do in it. Yeah, an in-game time of under 1:30 is really, really good for that level with the strats I do. So funnily enough, even though the level's called Melty Monster, the next 2 stars don't even have lava in it at all. They're both about bowling, specifically using Rock Mario. So I actually kind of leave up to chat for something. So there is a skip in Melty Monster 2 that I normally go for in marathons, but when I've been practicing the skip lately, I haven't been having really good success with it. And it's a strat that saves 3 seconds and loses about 45 if I miss it. I'm not thinking about going for it, but if you really, really want me to try it, I will, but I really still want to finish with a good time, so yeah. This level's pretty straightforward for the most part. The thing to note about this level is that there are a lot of star bits, so if you need to farm star bits, most SMG2 runners use an SD card to refresh their bank toad save files, but if you don't have that, you can just grind star bits from this level. Since there's like 190 within the level in total, and then you can just keep farming until you hit 999. And once you take the ramps, you can't actually stop Rock Mario, so this basically just kind of becomes an auto-scroller. And I'm going to be spinning after every jump I do, because that speeds Rock Mario up by a few frames. I think it said like a frame per jump. So I'm not going to go for it. I'm not feeling it tonight. So that little zigzag section, you can actually kind of roll across the tiny gaps instead of taking those fences like I did. And that saves about 3 seconds if you get it. The problem is that you have to change directions at very specific times in order to not die. And again, it saves 3 seconds and loses about 45 if you miss it. So it's not really safe for marathons, and I've been having pretty bad hit rate with it lately, so I just opted not to do it. But it's not like that is much safer either, because taking those fences can sometimes, if you hit the fence at the wrong part of it, it can just knock you to the side and kill you, which is equally as bad, but also kind of hilarious, and I've lost 2 PB pace runs to that. So I'm re-entering Melty Monster 2 because I start closer to this pipe, which is where the secret star is. This is the last chimp challenge of the run. There is another strat here that I can also do to save time, but again, I'm not going to go for it because I'm not very practiced with it, especially in runs, and it's really risky in a marathon setting. So if you notice, after I take each of these ramps, Mario kind of stops on the next platform and I have to start another roll. You can actually prevent that from happening by doing a jump spin onto the ramp that will cancel the ramp entirely, and then you can jump at the very edge of the ramp, land on the next platform, and then continue rolling. And if you do multiples of these, you can save several seconds, but the jumps are essentially blind, and again, failing them can result in death, and it can also be a lot harder to get all the pins you need. You only have 6 spare pins in this entire level. Although with this strat, I'm going to be skipping those 3 because otherwise I'd have to wait for them. Alright, 5,000 exactly. It's a bit of a monkey S, but it works. As long as you don't fail the minigame, you're good to go. So we made it past Melting Monster with no issues. Even though I did play it relatively safe on 2 in secret. There's only 56 pins in that level, and you need to hit at least 50 of them, but again, I skipped 3 of the pins because they're just too... they required me to wait.
Oh, yeah.
So now I'm finally done with Melting Monster, and we can move on to some other levels in World 6, starting with Clockwork Ruins. So, Clockwork Ruins 1 is a star that takes like over 3 minutes, so not viable for any percent. The secret star is about 1.5 minutes, which is not desirable, but because I want to be able to go to the galaxy after this, I want to do a star from here, and the secret star is preferable. And this star entails collecting 30 coins in this first section to beat a Hungry Luma. And this is a pretty frustrating star to get down. The route I'm doing here is fairly consistent and has pretty simplified movement. If you die on this star, however, then the cycles will be completely off, and they won't be as fast as you're used to. Okay. I missed that 1 coin, which is... that might bite me later, but... it's better to just keep staying on the cycle that you're on instead of wasting time trying to get coins you missed. Here I look in first-person mode a little bit to advance the cycles of the platform ahead of this one. Alright, so I can get 10 coins from this item box, which is convenient because then I don't have to worry about getting too many coins from the other gears. So I need to get 2 coins from this platform. Normally I'd only have to get 1, but... video game. And once I feed this Hungry Luma, the star is basically done, because on this final planet, where once again you're supposed to navigate through a bunch of hammers and then hit switches to slow down time, you can skip all of that by doing a somewhat simple triple jump wall kick up to the higher platform. And I'll go for the more aggressive version of this without a spin, but if I happen to have a bad angle, I'll just go for it with a spin. Okay, I don't trust that, so I'll have to spin. That's another skip that I think a casual player should do, or at least some variant of it, because it's quite a bit easier than just navigating through the hammers, or at the very least it's more trivial. So that's the only star I'm going to get from Clockwork Ruins, because again, the other stars are just way too slow to be worth it. But now we get to move on to a galaxy that I'm sure you at home are probably recognizing. And this is called Throwback Galaxy. So this is basically a remake of Whomp's Fortress from Super Mario 64. And this first star is sort of a recreation of the star chip off Whomp's block. And the common medal is actually where the shoot into the wild blue star was, which is kind of a nice homage. Unfortunately, the movement in here isn't nearly as flashy as it is in SM64, but you should still find it somewhat entertaining. So, I could just go straight up to the Whomp at the top of the level, but I do need to go here to get the Comet Medal. But fortunately, it's really easy to get up to the Whomp from here. And I can do this cool little triple jump to make it up here, like that. Here I'm going to use another nunchuck spin to climb up this wall quicker. You can skip killing this Whomp, but the method for it is really, really stupid, and only Nemi does it, because he's insane. Basically, if you jump at the very edge of where the Whomp will be when it crushes you, right as it slams onto you, you can clip through the floor and fall to the other side of the boss arena. But it's really, really risky, and if you fail it, you die. So, yeah, not really worth it in a marathon setting. And now I have to fight King Womp here, who has the same dialogue as he does in SM64. Unfortunately, you can't clip through this guy like you can in SM64. That was patched since then. So we do kind of have to fight this guy more or less as legit. And he's a bit of a pain, because if you get too cocky, then he can just kind of stun lock you, and these Wimples can get in your way, and then you die. And if you don't grab the checkpoint, then dying here is really terrible. I should know. Nice, I got the swag jump. Well, King Womp kind of vibrates after you hit him, and if you jump on a frame when he's vibrating up, you get huge air. It's completely useless, but it's pretty cool. So aside from obviously being a really cool level to showcase, that gives me access to Throwback 2 and Throwback Comet, which are both really fast stars. So I'm going to want to do them both. And this will be the last time that the Purple Idiot is going to bother me at all in this run, because this is the last time I'm going to be... He's going to talk to me, or bring me to any other place on the starship. He is going to want to bother us one more time, but we've got some big skips coming your way, so stay tuned. So up next is Throwback 2, where they pay homage to SM64 DS, sort of. They didn't place the silver stars in red coin positions like they probably should have. Instead, they just kind of threw them around the level randomly. But they give you Cloud Mario, which makes up for it. And since this is another kind of open world level, you can kind of route these silver stars however you want. And I'd say the movement in this level is really cool. For the start, we have this cool little bounce off the Bobbin Buddy. You want to hold A for this bounce, so you get more height off of it. That's something I didn't realize at first. Collecting this first silver star is kind of tricky. You need to make your cloud just late enough to grab it. If you make it too early, you have to wait for the cloud to expire, so that you fall down and make another one. And right here, I kind of veer off to the right when doing that long jump, because again, I want to gain more momentum in the air with Cloud Mario. You're going to see some more cloud boosting action here in a bit. Like so. Now I just got one final set of jumps to do here. Now let's see if I'm right above the star, because if I'm able to ground pound right into the star like this, then that'll be really swag. Awesome. So I could continue on the top path, but the top path has a galaxy called Battle Bout, which we avoid like the plague in any percent because it's just really, really slow and kind of boring, and also has Fiery Gobble Gut, which sucks. In fact, I don't even think I can continue on that path. I don't think I have enough stars. Yeah, I don't. So I'm gonna go to the bottom path instead. Because Flash Black is just another galaxy that's just better. And this is the last Hungry Luma I'm going to be feeding in the run. This is actually a Hungry Luma I incorporated into my any percent no bank toad route. This is actually one of 3 Hungry Lumas I collect star bits for, just because it's so much more worth it over doing Battle Bout. Flash Black has a gimmick that you could say is kind of similar to a B-Block and a Flip Swap. It's kind of similar to B-Block's gimmick, where in a cycle-based fashion, the lights flash every few seconds. And so this level is kind of about seeing the flash and then kind of knowing what to do from there, but I played this level probably hundreds of times, so I know what the layout of this level is top to bottom, so I can easily make my way through here. And this will be another level where I get Yoshi, but I shouldn't have to do any infinite fluttering, thank goodness. I will have to use the Flim Fruit to climb up a bunch of this level, though, which is kind of slow. Okay. That long jump's really awkward because of the angle. So now I just kind of have to climb up here with Limp Yoshi. Nothing too exciting going on here. There is a pretty cool strat to get the Comet Medal in this level and then get back to the launch star. that I'll hopefully get to show off. So once I get up here, I'm going to bounce off this Octuma to gain backwards momentum, dismount off of Yoshi to get the Common Medal, get back on him, bounce off this guy again, dismount again, and ground pound right into the launch star. That wasn't executed perfectly, but close enough. And this last section is just collecting silver stars. Again, nothing too exciting going on here. This yellow platform is kind of strange, because for some reason it seems like it's on a different cycle every single time I get there, and I'm not quite sure what influences it. Maybe it's how your movement in the level was done beforehand, I don't know. And the literal definition of a blind jump. I like making that joke. So yeah, that's that level done. And again, we want to avoid going on the top path, but it's not like the bottom path is really any better time-wise. It's just preferred. And I think this is slightly faster. So this is where you can get your resident sleepers out. The galaxy we have to do next is Slimy Spring, and there is really not much to this level. Literally the only reason this star makes the cut is because it's fast. It's the better alternative to Battle Belt. So this star is basically just kind of 2 minutes of swimming underwater with the shell. There's really not much else to it other than that. There's strats at the beginning and end of the level that I can talk about, but other than that, this is pretty straightforward. So this will be the last normal star I collect in the run, and this will also be the last common medal I collect in the run, and I am good on common medals. I want to have 32, because that'll allow me to spawn the Bowser's Grounding on the Comet, which is the highest common medal requirement. So there's a final slope boost of the run there. So I just gotta make my way over to the shell here, and now we just kind of do this. This is a really nice break midway through the... This is kind of a nice break in the endgame, because it gives you time to sort of relax after a bunch of stressful levels, and then you go into much more stressful levels. So this is kind of a nice calm before the storm stage. It gives your nerves a chance to sort of wind down. But yeah, there isn't much to this level at all. There is some minor optimization I can do in this section where I can try to beat this level coinless, so that I don't get the text boxes. Getting through these speed rings without the collecting coins can be a little bit tricky because of their hitboxes. And if you ram into a wall with the shell at this high speed, you actually lose the shell, which is the risk of going for this. But I managed to make it through. So we're doing this level coinless, which means I can skip the text boxes. And now I just have one final strat in this level. This strat really just requires a decent angle and a good lineup, but it looks really swag if you get it. And it really isn't that hard. Yeah. Thankfully, if you miss that, there is a backup shell, like, right next to where you are, so it doesn't lose too much time if you miss that, but come on, I can't just not go for that. And if you were asleep, you can wake up now, by the way. This level's over. So, the last 6 stars I'm going to get to fulfill the 70-star requirement are all going to be comets. I'm going to be collecting 2 from World 3, 2 from World 4, and 2 from World 6. So that'll get me to 70 stars. It's kind of a pretty convenient way to end out the run. And I'm good on common medals, which is good. And this is where the run really starts to get real. So, to start, we're going to go back to World 3, again using the Grand World map. And we're going to start with Honey Hall's Comet. So this is a star I could have done way earlier in the run, but due to routing nonsense, that is way too complicated to explain for a marathon run. Basically, I just need this star to be a buffer star for B-Block Comet and grounding on the Comet. And so now is the best time to do the star. This is the last section of Honey Halls 2 with Cosmic Clones. It's still just a bunch of long jumps. The cycles of the broken apart floor are slightly different, and the camera angle for this first section is a little bit different, but for the most part, the general idea behind this level is the same.
Yes.
It is kind of easy for the general low difficulty of this level to get to you, though, and sometimes you just fumble and make a mistake and die, and that's really painful. This is like the easiest star in the endgame portion of the run, or one of the easiest, I'd say. Alright, that was pretty good. Again, really straightforward level, not much to it. And now, it's time for two major late game run enders back to back. I've lost a few good runs to the next two stars. So, first off, we have Beat Block Comet, which is an interesting star because this star description flat out lies to you. So if you remember from Beat Block 1, the blocks switched every 8 beats of the song, and it says here they're switching in double time. But they actually switch 4 times as fast because they switch every other beat. And not only that, but the area with the silver stars has expanded. And so there's a lot more ground you have to cover. Thankfully, this means cycles don't matter nearly as much, since it changes a lot quicker, but obviously you still want to go as fast as possible. And there's some really risky movement you do in this level.
Yes.
Fortunately, you get Yoshi midway through this level for some absurd reason, which is great because we can use it to infinite flutter over most of this section. Alright, I didn't grab the checkpoint, so now things are getting real. Okay, it's possible that the blocks here will switch at the last possible second, so I'm just going to kind of shake and hope I can land on something. Okay, we're good. Sometimes if the blocks switch at like the last frame there, they'll switch again after the cutscene, which can throw you off. Thankfully that didn't happen. I would have been ready for it if it did happen though. But if you thought that star looked scary, this is probably my least favorite star in the entire run. Gravity Gauntlet Comet. So, if you remember Gravity Gauntlet 1, I did the skip behind the castle. Here you're going to get to see me go for the other skip, which is about 10 seconds faster, but it's way more finicky, and you lose about 30 seconds if you fail it. So, imagine you're 2 hours and 50 minutes into the run, in a 3-hour run, and then it all comes down to this skip, basically, and if you fail it, your run's basically dead. So, basically, the idea behind the skip is if you hit a lava wall and then hit the lava again, you get a huge amount of horizontal speed with your lava boost, and I can use this for a gravity exploit that's about 10 seconds faster than the one I did the behind the castle. But this requires me to do very specific movements in the air to not die. So here we go. This also has the best music in the game, by the way. But you sadly don't get to hear all of it. And here goes nothing. Oh, that's not good. Okay. So I got a little bit scared there. If you land too far to the left, or you spend like too long in the air or something, sometimes you just fall through the floor and die. Even after you land, and it's really, really upsetting whenever that happens. It actually could have happened there, but I'm really lucky that it didn't. Again, that skip is super scary at the end of runs. You have to, while you're in the air, you have to time switching from right to left up left at very specific intervals of the fall. Mistiming any of those will likely result in death. And so once you get past that part of the run, it's a huge relief. have a couple of breather stars, thankfully. After those stressful stars. So Starshine Beach Comet this is the comet I went out of my way to get the Comet Medal for, and as you're about to see, it's very, very fast, and honestly not that difficult. There are 140 purple coins here, and while the time limit can be considered strict, you're just on Dash Yoshi the entire time, and you have plenty of leeway, so you really shouldn't fail this star unless you're like super bad at the game, which some people might be, but you never know. The only really difficult part about the star is that to do it optimally, you have to make very tiny adjustments on the control stick, because you don't want to miss too many purple coins. And I've already missed 2, which isn't great. So if I don't miss too many purple coins for this first part of the level, I can skip a good chunk of them coming up here. Right, 88's a good number. So I'm just going to kind of go around the right side of this tower. That's fine, actually. That was kind of unfortunate. I probably should have started, like, run 1 row earlier just for safety. And not only that, grabbing the star can be awkward sometimes. That was kind of stupid, but it is what it is. So now we just have 2 more Comet Stars to get, and again, they're both in World 6. So we're going to make our way there for the final time. So, first off, we have Throwback Comet, and if you loved Throwback 2, you're going to love this star, because it is pretty much the exact same thing. It's basically Throwback 2, there just happens to be a timer at the bottom of the screen. The only really big difference is that the level intro cutscenes show different parts of the level, so some cycles near the beginning of the level are going to be slightly different, but it doesn't make a huge difference overall. So this cycle is slightly harder to make. But it doesn't matter too much because you have to wait for this platform anyways. Yeah, for the most part, this level is pretty much the exact same as Throwback 2, movement-wise. I don't know if I'm right about the star here, let's hope I am. I might be, like, a little far back. We'll see, though. Oh, I was right above it. Cool. And so now we have the famed 69 stars. So there's only 1 more we need to get. And it's somewhat of an anticlimactic final star, but it's pretty cool. So the final star we're going to be doing is Flash Black's Comet, which is down here. And so this is another Romp Comet, but there isn't really a power-up we use to kill the enemies, which are the Octoombas. Instead, you can just kind of kill them in one of 3 different ways. You can either jump on them, spin attack them, or shoot them with the Starbit and then kick them. For most of them, I'm going to try shooting them with Starbits and then kicking them, but this requires being able to be really good at multitasking, because you have to be able to pick up Starbits, aim them, keep track of your counter, and control Mario all at the same time. This is a very fun star to do. And it feels really good when you pull it off well. My pointer kind of screwed up there for a second. And I can get on Yoshi at the end here, and Yoshi can eat up multiple of the enemies at a time, which makes this section a little bit easier. Alright. So that is star 70, which is all the stars we need to unlock Bowser's Galaxy Generator. But that's not all. Because, now, it is time for the hardest skip in the run. This is a Trixie Dixie one. So, the fat purple idiot Lubba wants to bother us one more time before the end of the run. But we've pretty much had enough of him by now, so we're gonna do this really, really difficult skip. Called Purple Idiot Skip, and we just do that. You probably don't realize it, but I just saved 35 seconds. So on the space before the Galaxy Generator space, there's a cutscene that plays where Lubba just tells you it's like the final battle and you need to get ready and all that. But if you click on the Galaxy Generator space with the Wii Remote, instead of moving there with the nunchuck, you skip over the cutscene. It's pathetically easy. You do need to be playing in widescreen to do it efficiently, though. And now it's time for Bowser's Galaxy Generator. This is a really, really cool final level. I think this will be one you really enjoy. There's a lot of really cool tricks and skips in this level, and some really tight movement. So to start off here, we got another lava wall boost to skip killing these camera bros and riding a flower to the bottom. This is a lot easier than the one in Gravity Gauntlet Comet. As you can see, I just get a ton of speed and I can go all the way down here. So I'm going to intentionally jump into the lava here to get rid of the spin drill, because I want to be able to long jump and also spin while jumping, which are two things you can't do with a spin drill in your hands. And now we have this cylinder planet where there's a lot of elevators on cycles and bullet bills that can get in your way. The movement in this section can be pretty flashy if done right, but that's the hard part. This section is kind of the hard part. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's just figure this out. We'll figure it out, don't worry. Okay, that was really, really sketchy. I lost a lot of time there. But now we get to one of my favorite infinite flutters in the entire run. I think this is an infinite flutter. I think you'll really find crazy. I have to do this flutter in 2 parts because of the 10-second cooldown. So this first part will be kind of getting on top of the castle, and then I can infinite flutter over that huge pool of lava to basically get all the way to the final platform of the level. This saves like 40 seconds or something. Alright, and I should land on the top platform here. Nice. So you can actually hit 2 of these locks at once, but it's nearly pixel perfect or something, and there's no really consistent steps for it anywhere, so yeah. Alright, but if you thought all of that, you've made it through all of that, and now it's time for the final Bowser fight. It might not seem like it, but this is one of the worst late-game run-enders of all time. So, the Bowser does go back to dropping 3 meteors in this fight. The main difference is that he is a lot quicker to pull out his punches in this fight. And it is super easy to miss hits as a result. So you can be here on, like, barely PB pace 3 hours in, miss a hit, your run's dead, and there's really nothing you can do about it. It's super unfortunate. Especially because you have to make decisions super quickly, and if you don't make the right decision in time, it's not going to happen. So notice how much more quickly Bowser pulls out his fist on this fight. And I am going to go for another punch cancel on this first hit. So once again, I'm just going to wait for Bowser to charge up a punch, and then hit him with the meteor. Alright, and I don't have to do that any more times. But now now we're getting to the hard part of the fight. The third and fourth hits are where Bowser pulls out his fist really quickly. And here's the fun part. If you hit Bowser too late with the meteors, then the hit will go through, but you can hit him as he's summoning the meteors and then cancel that phase by accident. So when Bowser yells to summon the meteor, so when Bowser punches the ground, there aren't any meteors for you to ground pound into him, and you miss another cycle. Which is super, super bad. I do not like... Okay, this is fine. So optimally you can get that hit a little bit quicker, but my ground pound kind of got eaten, so I had to wait. But I got that early enough, so it doesn't matter. Now I just got one more hit. Alright, that was good. And so, that's it. Bowser is now dead. There's absolutely no way he can come back from that, I think. And time is going to be coming up fairly soon, and I believe I am in charge of the timer, though, so I don't think it really matters that I say that, but... Yeah, we're about to finish off the run here by just touching this final star. It's right there. And evaded. I hope I actually fooled some of you with that. I'm sorry if I did, though. We still have one more fight to do, and it is pathetically easy. You basically just press A and C 4 times and you win. It's pretty much impossible to die in this fight, because Bowser's one attack drops a coin. But yeah. It has the most epic music in the game, and you only get to hear it for like 20 seconds. Alright. So now time is actually going to be coming up soon. It'll be when I touch the Grand Star for the final time. Although, again, I am in control of the timer, so that doesn't really matter. This is actually an insane run for a marathon. This is going to be a high 3:01. This is actually going to be a 3:01.57, I believe, which will tie third place on the leaderboards. I am second place, and my PB is a 3:01.30. So this is 27 seconds off my PB in a marathon, which is nuts. And just for the record, the world record is an astounding 2:58.39 by Nemi. It is an absolutely insane run. So, yeah. Coming up on time here. And we're not going to hear Peach say thank you because that's slow. And time. So 3:01.57, that actually ties Valu111's PB, who actually held the world record in this category for like almost 3 years before Nemi beat it in early 2019. And, yeah, that is a new marathon PB for me by like 2.5 minutes. That was actually nuts. And that was a deathless run too. I believe that's my first marathon deathless run. So, I don't know if the perfect run was an incentive that got met or anything. I don't even know if the perfect run was an incentive at all. If not, then I can either just throw it back on over to the host, or we can sit through the credits. Whichever you guys want. I'll just wait for confirmation from Gimp and see what he wants me to do. I can either do the perfect run, but I don't know if that was an incentive or not, or we could just sit through the credits. It's like 6 minutes, or you can just move on from here. I'm fine with whatever. I did finish like 13 minutes ahead of my estimate.
Yes. No, you're good, man. I'll actually wrap up here.
Thank you.
Really great run. Really impressive. So I do want to thank Peach Viper for his run. He did. That was awesome. I watched one of your runs earlier this week.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you saying stuff in the call?
Yeah, sorry, man. I was just talking to you. I was just saying, you did really good. Good run. You did well.
I'm sorry, you're really quiet on my end. Can you repeat that? The game audio is about to be a lot quieter. Alright, repeat that.
Yep, I was just saying that that's it for our marathon today, but I'm just going to wrap it up here. I want to thank you for your run. It was really good, really
Thank you.
And,
Thanks for having me.
yeah.
I haven't done a marathon run of this game in a while, and the fact that it went so well is just insane.
Yeah, I was really impressed with it. So, yeah, absolutely. We will wrap it up here. I want to give donating and everything. Like I said, I will be basically giving all my donations and subs from today straight to that total was $313.25 that we raised just from subs and bits. So that's going to go straight to the Alleluia Baskets. So I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. It was a lot of fun. I'm going to play some music for you as we end this stream tonight. And
Yeah, you can feel free to switch it over if you want.
Oh, you're good, man. I was just going to say thanks again for being the finale here.
No problem.
Yeah, I'm going to end the call with you, but other than that, everyone has a great night.
Have a good night, everybody. Well, I guess if we're gonna sit through the credits, I can show off some fun stuff. So, there's a cool glitch you can do here. I guess I can try and show it off. I've never actually done this before. Oh wow, I actually got that! So I just broke the credit sequence entirely. I've never actually pulled that off before, but yeah. You can actually ground pound off the side of the moon there, and it just kind of does this. And I have no idea what's supposed to happen. Is it going to be like this for the rest of the credits? Well, I guess we can just sit back and see what happens. Enjoy Super Mario Galaxy 2 any percent, I guess. I think this is a lovely note to end on. Where am I? I just want to...
Thank you so much for playing my game.
I am definitely uploading this to YouTube. I think this will be my new marathon submission video.